It's that time again. It's actually, you know what?
It's
actually,
happy hour?
It is actually what we need is like a bunch of lightning and thunder cracks and
Always.
like some kind of spooky intro of just like it's All Hallows Eve. It's the day before Halloween. I think is that what that is? I don't know. Halloween Eve,
Halloween-ish.
yeah, but
Halloween adjacent.
I don't know. By the way, everybody, hey, it's the Rage Select Podcast, and I am Jeff.
I am Mayhem's Muse.
And I don't know when to celebrate Halloween this year.
Every day
it's on
is
Monday,
the answer.
And so do you do it on Sunday? Do you do it on Saturday?
Well, the majority of people do it like the Saturday before because that's when people can go downtown and people watch and get drunk and be stupid.
Uh-huh.
But I'm a fan of, you can't decide? Do it every day.
I forget, how long have you lived in Austin?
5-ish years? Going on 6 now.
Have you been down to the 6th Street Madness of Halloween?
I have. That is the one exception to my don't ever go downtown rule, other than roller derby after parties, because they're kind of required-ish as a referee.
Sure.
So my one exception is Halloween. Every once in a while I'll go.
I've gone. I find it to be immensely dissatisfying.
Really?
It's nice to go. It depends on what your goals are for Halloween. You got hashtag Halloween goals. So if your goal is to see people in a bunch of really fantastic costumes, going downtown is a great answer. If your goal is to get obliteratingly wasted, then going downtown is not a great answer.
Well, my question is really, why would you ever want to go downtown to get obliterated, wasted? Because then you'd have to go home. The booze is more expensive because it's in the tourist trap section of America.
Exactly.
Why wouldn't you just buy a bottle of something and stay home? Less travel, less expense.
It's probably what I'm going to end up doing this year.
I'm a fan of this.
I don't see any costumes or anything in my future. I've been too hung up on all the other horrible things, so I don't know. But Halloween, I know that a lot of people like Halloween. I feel like in the last decade, Halloween has gotten so blown out of proportion.
You mean you don't want to be Harley Quinn?
Oh man, I could probably put together a really shitty Suicide Squad Harley Quinn, fat hairy Harley Quinn.
I would love to help you make this happen.
I've got some jorts, right? So I need some fishnets. I need that Daddy's Girl shirt.
I have fishnets. We can make this happen.
That's one trip to Hot Topic. And then I need
a white T-shirt and a Sharpie.
Yeah, a really crappy blonde wig.
I have that.
I can even take a mop or something. Yeah.
We could Sharpie it.
All right.
Done
there we
and
go.
done.
Boom. Yep. Fat Harley Quinn. That's
Sexy Jeff photo shoot incoming. Patreon subscribers, this one's for you.
Actually, tilt that a little bit. That actually is a nice segue into I don't do anything, as everybody well knows. I just stay in my house. I play video games.
That's something.
Right. But last week I saw a thing, and I have very strong feelings about the thing that I need to get out into the world. These feelings have been welling up inside me in a way that has superseded my love of Transformers the movie. And in some cases I'm not even thinking about Dark Souls all the time.
Wow. Do you need a hug? Do you need an adult?
No, I just Do you need
a cigarette?
I just need to vent a little bit. Let's need about 10 minutes of venting. Okay. Now, have you seen the Rocky Horror Picture Show? I mean, you should see the look she's giving me.
Is that even a question?
I assume so. You never know. You just never know. You need to
If I seen it, do you mean was the first time I ever saw it when I won a trip to Austin for the very first time in college for an essay that I wrote, and we went and saw the midnight showing of Rocky Horror with the Shadowcast?
Yes.
Then no, absolutely not.
Okay, good. I'm glad that we're on the same page, because the first time that I saw the Rocky Horror Picture Show was roughly 1994 at the movie theater in the mall, and my friends were like, you got to come, and I was like, what is this movie? And they were like, just come and watch it.
Just do it.
So I don't know if you have watched the last week's
I have
remake quotey fingers of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but and I know that there's a good 40% of what I'm about to say that's all on me, because there was a 0.1% chance that the people making this were going to have any real respect for the original work but I don't know. I really feel like they completely missed the point of the entire thing in just about 12 different ways. I've been thinking about making one of those YouTube videos that, everybody else makes about the whole it's a 40-minute video with a bunch of slides and a bunch of examples and a bunch of things, but I just really feel like they missed the point of Rocky Horror Picture Show. I felt like it wasn't It didn't have enough horror. It wasn't sleazy enough. I felt like the way it felt like they were going to do it live, like what
Grease?
Yeah, but is that like what, NBC or ABC?
I couldn't tell you who.
They've done this before, but in doing that, it's like, I went back and I watched the original, and all of the shots in the original are much more dynamic. You've got these like shots from below people. You've got these reaction shots, like the whole anticipation line in Sweet Transvestite. Like it cuts back to Brad and Janet a whole bunch of times, like to get their reactions.
Right.
All that was gone. I felt like they horrifically miscast both Brad and Janet, because the point of one of the stories in Rocky Horror Picture Show is basically like these small town yokels having this weird 70s sexual awakening by going to this weird Halloween rock and roll crazy house.
Now you got hotness couple.
Yeah, and they're just way too attractive.
The look on Archer's face right now completely sums it up.
He knows exactly what you're talking about.
He knows what's up. He does.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could go on and complain about like I didn't really like the way that the music had changed. Like it was much more super produced and fancy as opposed to just kind of being a rock and roll soundtrack. By de-gorifying it, there was no, because like in the original Rocky Horror, I mean, maybe the easiest way to point this out is like Brad and Janet go over to the Frankenstein place, and when they come in, the house is horrifying. And Riff Raff is not a pretty person. Richard O'Brien in that.
Yeah, Riff Raff was way too sexy. It was disconcerting. I couldn't.
Like in the original Riff Raff, he was like hunchback and bald and had this stringy hair. And even Magenta, who, all these people are relatively decent looking folks when they're not in their makeup, but she's got way too much makeup on and she's horrifying. And there's a kind of this element that like, at a certain point, Brad and Jan decide they want to leave, but then they are pushed into the time warp, which don't even get me started on the fact that when you watch the 75 version, all of the guests that are doing the time warp are like weird people.
Yeah.
Like they're fat or they're old or they're too tall or too skinny or too short or too whatever. And they're all, it's like this weird orgy going on at the Frankenstein place. And in this one, it's like the whole cast of Disney, and they're all wearing like neon colored,
super glam.
Yeah. So
yeah, I feel you.
It just lost so much that that they took out all the gore, which meant that Frankenfurter killing Eddie wasn't as. I mean, that scene in the 75 version ends with Columbia just screaming her head off, and here it's like he just pushes her out the window and she's screaming, and yeah, it just didn't.
Yeah, I went into it wanting to like it a lot, because I loved the original, and I was like, sure, you're not going to be able to repeat the original.
Sure.
I mean, you just can't. But yeah, the bubblegum pop treatment that they gave it just kind of
too shiny, too bright.
It was a cult classic for a reason. It was supposed to be the show for the misfits,
Yeah.
and you've taken that and you've Britney-fied it.
Also,
I don't like that.
The original, I mean, there wasn't like implied sex in the original. Like they were
doing it.
You got the impression everybody was having sex with everybody. Like there was even like the way that Riff Raff and Magenta, who are brother and sister, there's a bunch of stuff in there where you're just like, this may not be explicitly like spelled out, but it's fairly heavily implied that they're doing it. Columbia and Magenta are doing it.
Yep.
Like, Eddie,
everyone's doing it.
Columbia, Frankenfurter's in with everybody.
Yeah.
And they're being so coy about the sex in it was like, but this just totally defangs the entire thing, and it makes it have no real meaning. And then I swear to God, this is the last thing I'm going to say before we move on, because I could talk about this for 45 more minutes, but I don't, and maybe you can help me. I need some outside assistance with this, okay? But Laverne Cox is Frankenfurter, right?
Yes.
I got no problem with Laverne Cox whatsoever. Love her on Orange is the New Black. I haven't really seen her in anything else. The issue that I'm wrestling with, though, is that in the original, Tim Curry is a man, and when he throws that cape off and he's wearing lady clothes, at least the first time that I saw it, it was like, wow, that's kind of shocking, right? Now, everything in society and in TV and everywhere has basically brought me to a place where I look at Laverne Cox and I just see she's a woman, right?
Gorgeous.
Right. So when Laverne Cox, a woman, throws off the cape and she's wearing this lingerie outfit, which is, fabulous and everything, but it just doesn't really have that same kind of like subversive hack to it that I feel like the original did. And I don't know if there's a way to make that.
Well, I feel like their interpretation of it was meant to be a little more subtly nuanced with it, since Laverne is trans.
Right.
So, I mean, it's you're actually having somebody in the role who is trans rather than an actor who's just very good at portraying that energy.
Yeah.
I don't know, but my beef with it was more the vocal timbre. There's just no replacing. I
could tell you right now, I've been watching, I've watched both of them, and in some cases watched scenes like side by side on my two monitors several times. But like in the time warp, there's the part towards the very beginning where Magenta is singing and then Riff Raff is singing, and there's that line where he says, like you're under sedation, like he yells out. But all of his lines before that are very low. It's like this very even-tempered kind of low singing, and then when he just like it shows him, and he has this really intense like you're under sedation line.
I remember that.
And Janet faints when he does that. He's fucking scary to her, right? Like she doesn't know what the hell's going on. So, and just here, while it wasn't horrible, I just felt like it missed the point, I guess. Was that there was...
Yeah, it's like a young kid who doesn't really understand the original watched it and decided to do an interpretation of it.
Yeah.
But it's like you missed the point. It went all over your head and you cut out all of the core of it.
And I mean, like,
Made me sad. And the music, just the musical interpretation, like the people that they got to portray the different characters just weren't...
They weren't as effective. Sounded the same.
And I will say this one thing. I was vastly underwhelmed with Adam Lambert, and that disappointed the hell out of me. Because Adam Lambert was Eddie.
Okay, yeah.
He was originally wanted for, I think, Frankenfurter, but because of his touring schedule, he's so busy with his actual stage performances that he didn't have time to commit to it.
Okay.
So he was like, cool, I'll come in and do Eddie. I'll have my one jam, and that'll be it, right?
Right.
He has a fucking fabulous voice. I don't know if you pay attention enough to pop culture music to know anything of his musical repertoire.
Nope.
He has a fantastic vocal range, a beautiful tone, a fantastic voice. Mm-hmm. They did not use any of that for that number. And it's not like you had to do it that way. Meatloaf has an amazing voice.
Sure.
Like, I am a lifelong Meatloaf fan. The first tape I ever owned was Bat Outta Hell 2, Back into Hell. I Would Do Anything for Love was the first music video I ever fell in love with.
Right.
I have a lifelong Girl Jones for the Meatloaf.
Sure.
And there's a standard there. Like even John Stamos, when he did it for Glee, because I watched all three this week. I watched Rocky Horror. I watched the Let's Do the Time Warp again.
Right.
And I watched the Glee does Rocky Horror this week.
Sure.
Even John Stamos' interpretation of Eddie was fucking on point. He has a beautiful voice. He did it really well. He had the attitude and the passion and the sexiness to it. Great. They made Adam Lambert look really horribly like underwhelming, and he's a normally fabulous creature, and they didn't use his vocal range. They didn't use the beautiful quality of his voice that would have made that thing very unique, and I was very disappointed in that.
That's Whatever Happened to Saturday Night is actually one of my favorite songs from the original, and going
it's such
back
a Meatloaf song.
Yeah, going back and comparing those, it's like not just that, but just when you watch the original, the way that Meatloaf is playing to all of the different characters, the way that he's kind of up in Brad and Janet's face.
He's sexy to everybody in your business. Yeah.
And then Columbia, he's like kind of going back to her the entire time. I also just noticed this is just a small thing where because they turned Columbia from this kind of really high-pitched kind of Harley Quinn sounding voice to this kind of disaffected blasé character, like in that song in Hot Patootie in the original, like there's a bunch of her kind of like her voice almost as an instrument kind of whooping and yelling in the background,
right,
that is just gone because you've changed.
They've got Homegirl. Yeah.
Also, I mean, the whole end of the story when Frankenfurter sings, what's the name of the song, Blue Skies or whatever at the end, in the 75 version, he's been having a pool orgy right before that, and so when he comes out, he looks like he's really pathetic looking. His makeup is all messed up. He kind of looks like a drowned rat, and it really gives you this kind of sympathetic pathos.
It humanizes him.
Right,
yeah,
for him at the very end, and so, I don't know. Also, I got huge problems with, if you want to put Tim Curry in there, I totally understand, but the criminologist is actually a really big part that has a bunch of actual singing parts in a bunch of the songs that
and nuance.
Poor Tim Curry doesn't look like he's
do that right now.
able to do that. So it's kind of like
it was almost painful watching him in those scenes, like knowing how far he's come, and it killed me. I wanted him to be a part of the production, but that just it made me so sad.
I mean, to anybody who's never seen it, go watch Rocky Horror Picture Show. And if you've got a local theater that's doing shadowcasts and callbacks, do that. Oh, also, one more thing because we got to move on. Oh my God, we got to move on. You can't. The movie, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, cannot reference the callbacks. That's our thing. That's not your thing. You're the Rocky Horror Picture Show, the movie, and we're the audience that puts the newspapers over our head and throws the toilet paper and does the callbacks.
Birthday hats.
You can't have both of them. You can't have that too. Well, before we get to the news, just really quick, I know that we're on a little tight schedule today. What have you been up to, Jennifer?
I've been traveling a lot. I was in California for the Oculus conference, OC3 Connect 3, which is their yearly developer conference for virtual reality technology and stuff. Learned a lot of things. Got to see Zuckerberg. That was cool. Got to be there for all the announcements of what's coming next in VR technology. Web VR is the thing, and they're working on a untethered headset. It's supposed to be cost effective and high quality, like a combination of the Rift and the
Gear VR.
The Gear, thank you. Brain. Yeah. Words are hard. Yeah, so I was in San Diego for that.
Did you get to see anything? What was the most striking thing you may have seen on VR?
There was this really beautiful production. So I work for a VR film company, so the one thing that I knew I needed to check out was all of the film content. I mean, the video game demo floor was packed every day because that's what everybody jams on. But I was one of the only people, I think, that went to... They had a building set up in their conference hall that was just for the theater stuff. Mm-hmm. And you were supposed to have a demo slot for it to come in and do the thing. I was the only person that came back more than once to see a film. Because I went and saw every single film that they were showing.
Okay.
And the first one that I saw was by far my favorite. It has been my favorite VR experience of any kind so far, especially of film. And it was the longest. Most VR film content is 1 to 3, maybe 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. This was over 20 minutes. It was between 20 and 27 minutes long. Wow. It was long. It's called Control, CTRL, by Breaking Forth. They are out of the UK.
Okay.
And it was this beautiful piece that they market it as a esports tournament where you're in the ring of the esports tournament, and the aesthetic of it is like giant chess pieces that shoot lasers out of them, like a combination of chess and Call of Duty, where you're shooting other things, right? Mm-hmm. And the piece is a kid from the UK competing in the final round of this tournament. So you see him at his webcam feed as he's competing, and then you hear the announcers, and you see the announcers who are commentating this match. Mm-hmm. And the whole shtick of it is that he's in a domestic abuse situation. His stepmom is being abused his mom is being abused by his quote unquote stepdad. Like, they're not married, but they're together.
Okay.
And so he wants to win this tournament so he can win the money to free them from this situation and buy his mom a house where they can be safe. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of getting this backstory as you're going through the piece.
Good golly, that sounds...
It's super deep.
Yeah.
But as a child who came from a domestic abuse situation, for me, it was really on point.
Okay.
And was a very beautiful, eloquent, and hard-hitting way to get people to understand that kind of dynamic and situation and how difficult it is for the kids and the parents and the whole shtick. Okay. It was a beautifully elegant way of telling that story. And an interesting term that I've been hearing the last few months is like empathy. VR is an empathy machine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it makes it so much easier to get in touch with those emotions. And this piece was a beautiful example of that. And I actually had the pleasure of meeting the director of the piece. He happened to be at the conference, and I got to shake his hand and give him my card and tell him how much I appreciated his piece. And their team actually commented a bunch of times on the Twitter post that I put up about it, because I was ranting and raving about how great it was and how much it impacted me. And I've actually been in contact with them since then about their piece and what I thought of it. And they are currently putting together a list of resources for people that have been abused, for helplines and things like that in the U.S. as well as in other places. For if you're going through this or somebody who is, here are your resources for how to reach out. And I have friends who work for the Travis County Special Victims Unit and reached out to them and asked them, what the best resource list was for that. So I've gotten them in touch with that list of people, which is a very beautiful and very important thing to me.
Yeah.
So I've been very honored to be able to see something like that coming to fruition and see that it's been so successful. And
wow, you're doing something
fantastic.
like something laudable and great with your life there.
I wanted to cry a little. I walked out of the piece. Actually, I almost cried. Like I was gripping my chair. I was upset, but in a very beautiful way. It was fantastic.
I saw a long time ago, like very early on when they were doing I think it was the DK1 headsets. They had a really interesting thing where it was like two people with headsets that had cameras on the front of them that was like, it'd be like a man and a woman. And then they would like strip down, and then they would stand like back to back, and one of them would be like an actor, and the other person would just be like a participant. And then the thing would be that the person who was the participant would basically say out loud what they were going to do with their body. Like, I'm going to look down, and then the other person would try they had some different types of inputs in their thing. They would try as hard as they could to mirror their head movement to the same head movement of the other person. They'd be like, I'm going to lift my arm up. And the whole point of it was that when you do that, then the participant is basically looking down at a body that looks like, because VR is so immersive, that looks like it's your own body, but with the gender completely reversed, as a way of being like, is what the first thing I thought of when you said empathy machine, because VR is so immersive that it's almost impossible. I feel like it would be impossible for you to not at least get somewhat into seeing different points of view.
Right. Absolutely. I find that it's a beautiful vehicle for that. And I had the honor of meeting Gabo Ororo, who is the very first creative director of the United Nations. He was one of the speakers at OC3.
Okay.
And he does some beautiful work in empathy. He's been traveling overseas and doing work in war zones where he meets with people in different cultures and talks to them about the issues that they've been going through, and has been filming projects like that for the VR space.
Cool.
And he's actually talking about, we're hopefully going to be doing a panel for South by on VR and shooting in extreme conditions, and he said that he would come speak on it.
Nice.
If it's during a day that he's available. So I'm looking forward to bringing him to Austin and getting to pick his brain more about that kind of empathy machine and things. And on the note of like syncopated movement in VR with people, there's an event here in Austin next Friday that a friend of mine is performing in. It's called Revolve Austin, a movement display, and it's at the Charles Johnson House, the American Legion House in Austin.
Okay.
And they're filling this house with a bunch of different rooms of different dance troupes.
Okay.
Basically, each room is a different troupe and a different statement. And in one of them, they have a VR element where it's one person at a time. You put on a headset, and I don't know the function of it, how it works, but you put the headset on, and whatever that you're doing is translated to how the dancer will move. Like, there's a dancer in the room with you that's going to be moving in time to whatever it is that you're doing with this headset business. So I'm going there next Friday to check it out, because it sounds really exciting. And combining dance and art in VR is another really groovy thing for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's exciting stuff happening. So many creative expression outlets that we didn't have before.
Absolutely.
So good.
Yeah. Man, I just hope it doesn't crash and burn.
It's not gonna. And then on top of that, I've been shooting 360 stills in graveyards and in forests lately for projects. Very cool stuff.
I went to Taco Bell last week. That was
and I got one more. We landed a contract to make VR worlds out of Fury, the Brad Pitt World War II film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're taking scenes from that and compiling them into VR snippets.
Okay.
So we're editing Brad Pitt, no big.
I still will need to get my hands on one of those PlayStation VR units. I don't know.
We're going to get one soon.
Maybe if I can get my taxes paid.
Oh, that's a thing. You might want to do that.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that.
I feel you.
So, all right. Well, on that happy note, let's jump on over into the news.
The news.
And we got a fair amount of weird news. It's a weird grab bag this week.
I like grab bags.
First story. Oh boy.
This is a big one.
Yeah. So Bethesda did some stupid shit this week, basically.
Sad panda.
Bethesda is
They're a unique creature.
they're starting to bum me out Like because I own Skyrim, I have the Skyrim Special Edition that came out yesterday or whatever, and I loaded it up and I was like, okay, well this looks a little better than base Skyrim. I mean, you can install a bunch of mods on the PC and it looks great anyway, but whatever. I like the stock experience a lot of times, so I load up Skyrim and I'm playing it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that Bethesda doesn't know anything about how to remap buttons. Like they're all fucked up and in the wrong place. So I go in and I remap all the buttons on the controller, and yet all the prompts on the screen are still for the previous button that, like, by default, when you're in a menu to exit the menu, you hit the B button. But if you remap the B button to, say, the Y button, it still says B button in the menu. And it's just like, yeah, come on. Anyway, this is not complaining about Skyrim. This is complaining about Bethesda. So Bethesda has decided that they are no longer going to be sending review copies of their video games to gaming journalists. They're going to be sending them. Let's amend that. They're going to be sending review copies to game journalists one day before the game comes out. So, game comes out on Tuesday. You get your game on Monday.
No pressure.
Which, for a game like, say, Doom or maybe Wolfenstein, if you're a game reviewer and you want to sit down, you can marathon through it. You'd be like, all right, well, it's Monday. I'm gonna spend 14 hours playing this game, and then I'm gonna
that soda out.
Spend 4 hours writing the review, and then I'm gonna crash out. Right. You can't review Fallout 4 in 24 hours. There's literally no way for you to...
I could. Post-apocalyptic zombies. Nope.
Yep.
Done.
There you go. Jennifer'sReviews.com. Just a big no or yes.
It's all you get. It's all you need.
So, okay, this is kind of scumbaggy behavior, and it's kind of the behavior that I would normally expect from a company like EA or Activision who have games where they don't want to let out how poor their game is before they ship it, right? But like Bethesda did this with Doom, and Doom's a great game. Everybody got it a day ahead of time, and their whole reasoning for that was because the online multiplayer component was such a big part of the game that they didn't want reviewers reviewing that component of the game in a vacuum or just playing against other reviewers. They wanted them
I remember reading about
in there with the whole thing.
I liked Doom VR. I tried that at E3. It was fun.
But it's stop. You know what? It's like I remember when. What was that movie? Night and Day with what's his name and what's her face came out, and they wouldn't give the movie reviewers a press screening of it. And when people would write articles about it, their official response was like, "Well, this isn't a movie for movie reviewers. This is a movie for just the general audiences. So you guys don't need to have special access to go to movie review." That's not how it works. You don't get to decide that this movie doesn't need to get reviewed. Every movie needs to get reviewed. Everything needs, all of the games need to come to you with enough time to play them. And so Bethesda has this really kind of condescending blog post on their website. And it starts with this horrible, at Bethesda, we value media reviews. We read them. We watch them. We try to learn from them when they offer critique, and we understand their value to players. But when later on they say, with the upcoming launches of Skyrim Special Edition and Dishonored 2, we will continue our policy of sending media review copies one day before release. While we continue to work with media, streamers, and YouTubers to support their coverage both before and after release, we want everyone, including those in the media, to experience our games at the same time. Well, just go fuck yourself, Bethesda, because you don't get to just say that. Like, you don't get to just decide that, like, you could put that spin on it if you want to, but honestly, that's just not how it works. Like, to do a proper review, games journalists need time to play your game and make an evaluation of it.
You're a journalist. You don't have a life, right? Or a soul? Or...
Well, I don't have a life, but I'm barely even a journalist. I can't get Bethesda to respond to me.
I think that you are very much a journalist, sir. People value your opinion very highly.
We'll see what the comment section says about my Rocky Horror rant earlier. But anyway.
We will. Archer likes it.
And then the thing that really bums me out is this last sentence where they said, we also understand that some of you want to read reviews before you make your decision. And if that's the case, we encourage you to wait for your favorite reviewers to share their thoughts. What a load of bullshit.
So that means I'm going to wait longer to buy your games now. Congratulations. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, bye.
No, I mean, it's irritating because it's not the way that things work. Like, it's kind of one of those black is white, up is down, left is right. Like, I don't know. You can't just say that. That's not how it works. And what sucks about it is that Bethesda generally puts out very good games. between Doom and Wolfenstein and the original Dishonored. I think that Prey 2 looks really interesting.
Yeah.
Like, Dishonored 2 looks like it's going to be pretty good. Like, I don't understand why they're doing this, because they already have a fair amount of goodwill from people. So why are they doing this? Because it's only going to generate bad will. So
well, and the question is that an attempt to lead an initiative to get other people to do the same? Do we think that that's going to be a new segue of working away from an emphasis on game reviews?
I tell you what, one of the most disappointing things in my entire life has been, and this is, I don't want to get too far into these weeds, is Gamergate. Because in all honesty, ethics in games journalism, especially when you evaluate things like this from the publisher side, is broken. Like, you have these, there's plenty of things. When Warner Brothers put out Shadow of Mordor, they gave Shadow of Mordor to a bunch of streamers, and they said that you can stream it, but they had this big list of, like, you can't say Lord of the Rings. It's got to be Battle for Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, or whatever. It's like, you can't say anything bad about it. You can't, like, showcase bugs. There were all these caveats on this thing to tell these people what they could and couldn't say about this. And if they broke that trust, then Warner Brothers would then refuse to send them any more games. And so it gets into a really weird situation where I've read articles about a company like Activision that's like, if you want a copy of Call of Duty before it comes out, you need to write 3 different articles this year about how good Call of Duty is.
Jeez.
Regardless of whether you think it is or not. You need to write several things.
That's pandering, though, and that makes me sad. That's not honest journalism.
Yeah, the problem, I guess, is just the fact that companies control the review copies, and there is no buffer in there, right? That if you were Activision, it would probably make a lot of sense for you to be like, well, we're not going to give review copies to, let's say that Rage Select has panned the last 4 Call of Duty games and gave them all 1 star, right? So when it comes time to send out review copies of the new Call of Duty game, why would we send one to Rage Select? We know they're probably going to pan it, so let's just X them off the list and send a copy instead to this blogger over here who really likes Call of Duty, who's liked all 4 of our games. The problem is that then you don't get, you're cherry picking your reviews, and you don't get a good sampling of what actually, is good and what is not. So going back to what I was saying, it really always pissed me off that Gamergate's focus was entirely this weird, like, feminism in video games and these little indie games and stuff. When I'm like, there is a huge problem here that needs to be addressed that nobody really talks about, and yet you're using your powers to go after these
for evil.
Yeah, well, these individuals that it doesn't really matter for. So, anyway, I'm really disappointed in you, Bethesda. I mean, I'm not going to stop playing your games. It's my job, but I'm disappointed. Next up, we have some new information on the Nintendo Switch. Now, did you see
This one I didn't see.
Okay, did you see the video about what the Switch is?
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna load this up real fast. So last week, Nintendo they haven't announced. They finally announced their new console, and it's the Nintendo Switch. It's coming out March of next year. For those of you who didn't listen last week or whatever, it's basically like an iPad. That fits into a docking station that you can play on your TV, but at any point in time, you can take the iPad out of the docking station, attach these controllers to the side of it, and take the whole thing with you like a portable unit. So this video goes on for a while, and they have a whole bunch of different applications about, and because the iPad is essentially the entire game console. It's like you're taking you're not streaming it over the network or anything. You're just taking the entire game console with you. You can detach each individual little side controller can be detached, and they can be used as individual controllers if you want to play 2-player. It's got a kickstand in the back.
Interesting.
I really like what I'm seeing. But there were some new details that came out this week. They didn't indicate in this little video whether the screen was a touch screen, and it is. It's 720p, it's a touch screen, and it is multi-touch too, which the Wii and the 3DS,
interesting,
Wii U and 3DS both have single touch screens. But
that's not at all where I thought they were going to be going with that.
Well, there have been a lot of patents they filed over the last year that have pointed in this direction. And I, just to reiterate what I said last week, I think it's a really cool idea because it's something very different, and that's
cute. I like that.
What, the little...
Yeah, the fact that it can be... You can both... So it's like the little tiny controller. That's cute.
Yeah, the two people can play with the controllers. Yeah, so it's got a lot of potential. And yeah, this week we found out a little bit more. They also said that, and I actually legitimately hate it when companies do this. They also put out a press statement saying that, like, in January they will be having a conference talking about the price, the game lineup, availability, et cetera, et cetera. So
now we just have to sweat it out until then.
Yeah, it's not like there's like 1 billion video games coming out between now and then. But yeah, all in all, I'm still real excited about the Switch. I haven't seen anything so far that makes me... I mean, I'm a little worried about the removable controllers and how over time, if they get
the wear and tear
loose or anything. But the idea itself is pretty nifty, and I like the...
We're going to have to play it.
Yeah. So let me see. That takes us through... that's a Switch. It's a touchscreen. January, 720p. And they think they're going to sell 2 million in the launch month. Right. So next up on the list, last week we were coming up on the deadline for the Screen Actors Guild voice actor negotiations with the video game industry, and it looks like they are now on strike.
That's a thing.
Yeah. Now that, we would think that, well, I don't know. I don't know what side everybody in the audience or you come down on. I'm generally on the side of labor personally. I'd say fuck management. Let's all get out there with our signs and picket. But the problem with this is the fact that the Screen Actors Guild voice actors only account for about
a very small percentage,
like 20
of all
to 30%,
right,
of all the video game voice actors. Considering how big a business video games are, I feel like they're just going to hire scabs or stick with the companies that they've been working with that are non-Screen Actors Guild associated and just move forward. It also takes quite a bit of time to make a video game, so I don't think that this is going to affect anything at least through February or March.
The video game voice acting community is very small. Well, the voice acting community in general is very small, and people tend to book the same people over and over again.
Yeah.
Like in any popular anime series you can think of.
Yeah.
It's the same actor from one show to another because people will work with somebody they know does really good work and has diverse vocal range, and they'll stick with them forever.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It could have more impact than what we think.
I hope so. I mean, I saw... just to reiterate, the Screen Actors folks are looking for basically more money, a chunk of the actual profits of the game, basically royalties on the game, and then kind of better conditions about how long they're expected to work in a single recording session. And
which I can't blame them for.
Yeah, there's also
it's pretty arduous work.
A whole thing where the companies want there to be some kind of thing where when they do a call that they could basically tell the guild, you need to send out all of these people to audition, whether they're interested or not, that they need to be essentially forced to come out and be part of the casting process, whether they're interested in doing this or not. So
interesting.
It looks like they're on strike. So we'll actually have to wait and see whether that
Strike Watch 2016.
Yeah, affects anything. I think it's probably going to be... I mean, everything coming out this year is already done, so it's probably going to be whether
next year's games,
all the horse shit in 2017 gets pushed to 2018 like things do every year. All right, well, next up, I know it's your favorite time of the Rage Select podcast.
Always.
Final Fantasy 15 news.
Sorry, I'm very excited.
We had, did you get a chance to watch this trailer?
Yes.
This Omen trailer?
So pretty.
So we have this Omen trailer, which...
I need a moment.
It didn't tell.
Shh, I need a moment.
Okay. Stand by, everybody. Stand by.
Okay.
There's
all right, okay.
I don't know. I don't know what I was watching. Like I there's some kind of like metaphor or like thing going on here. I don't understand. Like I will say that I feel like this trailer was almost entirely made for you specifically.
It really was. They made it specifically. They're like, who's our biggest fan ever? Oh, Jen.
Right.
Oh, we need to make a trailer that's total eye candy for Jen.
Yep. Here's a cute wolf puppy.
Yeah.
Over the course of the trailer, Noctis keeps losing more and more clothing until he's completely just bare-chested at the end of it.
He's a man.
Yeah, I guess. He's not...
I love the broody hair over the eyes. He's got a very Tobey Maguire Spider-Man thing going on right here. Only better.
That haircut does not say broody to me. It says Hot Topic.
It's gross. It's the hair over the eyes. It's very like 90s grunge. Kurt Cobain would be proud.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's real pretty.
It's real pretty.
I don't think it actually.
I'm really hoping that the pooch is part of the game.
It's not in the game engine, though, is it? This isn't the actual.
I don't know. I hope it is.
I don't think it is. I feel like this might just be leftover assets from when they made Kingsglaive. They were like, yeah, let's make a trailer out of this shit.
Well, he's not even really in the movie. I mean, he's in the end tiny bit, but he's not even in it.
Yep. So there's a lot of action. There's a lot of stuff. It's also 4 minutes long, which is insanely long for a trailer.
I'm happy with it.
I'm kind of to the point now that I get to with every game where I'm like,
just give it to me already.
Yeah, you done made me excited, Square Enix. Just put it out.
You did your job.
Yep.
Foreplay over.
Yep.
Let's get to business.
Yep.
I feel you on that.
I'm already
I just want it.
I'm all rocking and ready to go. You don't need to get me more excited.
I had a friend of mine message me the other day, and he goes, "Oh, I just got an email that says that Final Fantasy 15 is coming out soon. Are you excited?" And I was like, "Is that even a real question? Like, are you serious right now? Where have you been?"
November 29th. You got about a month left.
I did see a thing this week that made me kind of sad.
Yeah.
About 15.
Mm-hmm.
The Moogle thing. Did you see that?
No.
Okay, so there's a mechanic in this game where you have a Moogle. So Moogles are in just about every Final Fantasy game. They're like the mascot of the Final Fantasy world. Oh, the pooch! Ah!
I think they started in 6, I believe.
Yeah. So in this game, the permutation of the Moogle is they're this item that you have in your inventory that you throw on the battlefield as like a lure, kind of like the zombies ate my neighbors, the clowns, the clown decoy.
That's a deep cut right there. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, so you throw the Moogle out, and then people attack that instead of you.
Okay.
But then when you attack, so you throw it, and then everybody converges on the Moogle, and they're attacking the Moogle.
Sure.
And then if you like cast a spell in that area to hit everybody that's converging on it, it hits the Moogle too. And it makes me really sad because I love Moogles so much, and then like voluntarily doing damage to them and throwing them in line of fire. I'm like, no, my Moogle!
You can have
what are you doing?
Going to be online for 20 hours researching a build that doesn't have to hurt the Moogle.
Seriously, and in the cut I saw for it, it's like the Moogle's like trying to crawl away, and it's all like blackened and super sad.
Don't burn up the Moogle, Square.
Makes me so sad.
Jesus. Well, at the end of this trailer, the cute little white wolf turns into a scraggly black hyena-looking motherfucker. And I guess it's like some kind of implication that all the things that Noctis has been fighting, he's been on the wrong side, or he's been duped, or I don't know. Something's going on here. It's too deep for me. I don't understand. That last trailer was great where
Do you need an adult? Oh, look, there he is shirtless.
Yep.
There he goes.
Yep. There's like a dark version of him.
My clothes are just coming off.
Yep. Anyway, that wasn't the only Final Fantasy 15 news that we got last week. They finally went ahead and outlined their DLC plans, which are strange. I don't know. Did you get a chance to?
This one I didn't see.
All right. So there's going to be 4 different DLCs that come with the season pass. It's $25. Yeah. And the first 3 are to be expected. There's going to be the first 3 that come out are going to be story DLC based on the other 3 bros in the party. So Gladio and I don't ever remember their name. They got names I can't remember. Prompto, Gladio, and the other guy. So that's okay. That's to be expected. The 4th one is the one that's a little strange. Archer is generally not allowed on that couch, so he's conflicted. You know, if you can get him to come up there, it's fine. Jennifer's trying to get Archer onto my red couch, which he generally is not allowed on.
Archer, come cuddle. I know you want to. I see it in your tail wagging.
But the 4th one is actually a co-op thing called Comrades, where you can play Final Fantasy 15, but then other people play as the other 3 characters.
That's groovy. I dig that.
It kind of makes me wonder, though, like, is that going to be... Do I really want to, like, play this 55-hour JRPG with my friends?
I want to.
I don't know, man.
I need this in my life.
So there's not. I didn't see a lot more information about it than just that. But yeah, it's going to be called. The last one's going to be called Comrades, and apparently, I'd be willing to bet that it's probably going to be. Specifically boss arenas. I bet it's not going to be the entire game. I bet it's going to be challenge maps.
That would make sense
to play with your friends. So I really hope that 15 works out for Square because my God, they've just gone all in. I do not remember this much for Final Fantasy 13, and there were 3 of those. So
yeah. I just want them to get it out and get done with it so that they can move on to 7 because that's what we all really want.
Yeah. Well, not everybody.
Well, those people are wrong.
Not everybody, Jennifer, because
those
we also have a bunch of Kingdom Hearts fans out there. And
I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan too, but screw that shit. I want Final Fantasy VII.
They put out 2 screenshots for Kingdom Hearts 3, and this is apparently a news story showing that, and I'm not up on my Kingdom Hearts, but apparently drive forms are back in Kingdom Hearts 3, which was in Kingdom Hearts 2. Yeah. These 2 screenshots show a guard form for Sora. Again, these are just words to me. They don't mean anything.
Did you play any of the Kingdom Hearts
I
games?
played the first one and never finished it. I played the second one. I got about 20% in and was just kind of like...
Oh, yeah. The second one was really boggy. I enjoyed the first one a lot more than the second in the storyline elements. I liked the mechanics of the second one. They worked out a few of the bugs that were sticky to me in the first one, in the second one, but the storyline I found to be tedious.
Okay.
So it's like if I could have a melding of the storyline of 1 and the mechanics of 2 together, it would be a dream child.
I think that for me, a lot of it's become very intimidating because Square games are long, and it's not like there's just Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2. There's also like 4 other spin-off titles. And all that's
true, but because of the way that they segment into chapters the games, like there's each world from each of the different Disney kingdoms or whatever, it makes it a little more palatable. It's easy to break it up into chunks and play like a world in a couple hours, and then you go away and you do something else for a couple weeks, and then you come back and you play another world, and then you come back and you can do them really in any order. There's an overarching storyline to it, but each world has its own storyline to it. I don't know.
Okay.
You might try it again sometime.
I do not have...
it's not in you.
I don't... there's only one thing out there that I'm willing to put 50 hours into these days.
Wait. I know this one. Is it Dark Souls?
No, it's Metal Gear Solid 5. No, I'm just kidding. It is Dark Souls. I mean, I beat Tokyo Mirage Sessions, and that was like 30 or 40 hours. But what I found is that every week there are so many freaking interesting video games out there that it's hard for me to stop. It's hard for me to stop playing the new games and to keep playing the old games.
Shock.
Yeah. I got like 3 right now that I need to finish, but speaking of Kingdom Hearts, they're also bringing Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 plus 2.5 remix to the PS4, and that will be Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories, Kingdom Hearts 358/2 Days, the HD remastered cinematics, Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Final Mix.
Kingdom Hearts, really the last one we promised. It's not going to be another one. This is the say-all and all of the universe. That's it. Goodbye, the end.
Well, yeah, I tell you what, you would think that there's 6 games on this list, right? And then there's the other collection that's coming out in January, Kingdom Hearts 2.8.
I can't with this.
Which is, let me click on this and see.
2.582736.
This is Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop, Distance, Kingdom Hearts .2, Birth by Sleep, A Fragmentary Passage, and Kingdom Hearts X back cover, and more. So, yeah, I don't have...
I'm shaking my head. I'm shaking my head slowly.
Big enough in my soul to be filled with that needs that much Kingdom Hearts. There's already totally a Dark Souls right there. So, yeah, you guys will. I mean, we'll have to play Kingdom Hearts 3 when it comes out. But Square,
I'll play it.
It's going to be 2.5 years before that game comes out. I'm sorry, Kingdom Hearts fans.
They did demos though.
They did demos of 15.
That's true.
Fucking 8 years ago.
That's okay. Fair point.
So,
and hopefully they're going to put all that shit on the back burner because they're going to work on Final Fantasy VII.
Final Fantasy VII Episode 1, you mean?
Yes, I do.
And then 2 years later,
Yes, I do.
Come out with
Yes, I
episode 2.
do. Thank you very much. Screw you very much.
I watched the Final Fantasy 13 development
I hear the
cycle.
condescension in your voice. I hear it. I'll have none of it.
Okay, fair enough. Well, let's move on to greener pastures.
To blood and gore and intense violence and strong languages.
That's right. They put out a Dead Rising 4 Combo-ween trailer, which is kind of a
Combo-ween.
Halloween trailer for Dead Rising 4.
I just like that word, combo-ween.
Yeah. I doubt.
Oh God, not stuffed animals! No.
I doubt you have not played a Dead Rising game, have
Nope.
you? It's all about dressing up in silly clothes. And
I
then,
honestly couldn't tell you the last time I played a Capcom game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm behind.
Street
I'm
Fighter
losing.
There haven't been that many. There haven't been that many this year. So, but this is basically just watching Frank West get out there and wear funny stuff and blast on a bunch of zombies.
I'm cool with that. I hate zombies.
Yeah, I didn't realize this before, but they really did change the way that Frank West looks. Like, he used to be kind of like ugly, and everybody in Dead Rising
in new ways
was they were real ugly. They were real like big, weird bulbous nose, and Frank West is kind of a fat guy. And
I love the facial mask with the cucumber.
Yes,
that is my favorite. That's so intimidating.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll definitely.
So it's like
play
Twisted
this.
Metal for zombies, basically.
It's like it's kind of like Saints Row for zombies. Is probably how I would.
Okay. Right.
The zombies are not really very difficult to destroy, and it's more about how many of them you can destroy in how short a time.
It's like
period.
campy fun.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll play that.
I liked Dead Rising 3 quite a bit though. So 4, I don't know. 4 is kind of a weird quantity, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see how it goes. Next up, how about something completely and totally unnecessary?
Always. Yes, please.
There's this a Dishonored 2 live action trailer. So
how did I not see this?
This is Corvo and whatever her name is. I can't remember the female protagonist's name in this. I'm very sorry. From Dishonored 2, and they're kind of doing this whole like, oh, you stole my throne, but you didn't know who I was.
I'm sorry. I thought you said that this was Dishonored. This looks a lot like Star Wars Episode 1.
Nope. Yeah, this is totally Dishonored 2. Dishonored kind of looks like Star Wars Episode 1 a little bit.
It really does.
But I just don't understand. Like, they put a lot of money into this. Like, they've got real people, and they've kind of integrated all the like shadow powers that What's-Her-Face has, and Corvo's zipping around and stabbing people and jumping, and like they've got these streets that are all set up with fishmongers.
How do you get that gig? Like being her for a video. I want that in my life.
I don't know. You
got to know the right people. I will say that the Dishonored booth, the Bethesda booth at E3 this year was by far my favorite booth, other than the one for Mafia.
Okay.
Because Mafia wins because they had that whole New Orleans street scene thing going on, and they had a live like jazz band, like a street band, every day playing. So live music always wins for me.
Right.
But other than that, the Bethesda booth was so sexy. It was sleek and understated, but very impactful. And they had actual like costumes from the game, and it was really groovy stuff. Really cool to see. And I knew nothing about the game, but if ever the marketing for a game won me over to want to play it, this did it.
Dishonored 2.
Yeah, Dishonored is now high on my list of games that I need to play soon.
I mean, there's absolutely nothing. Again, there's nothing wrong with this trailer. It's very pretty. I mean, it's actually pretty,
it's really pretty,
that I have to ask myself, why did you spend so much money on this? Like, you could have bought pizzas for everybody at your office a couple times, or
maybe they can already afford pizza. Maybe this is like they've got enough extra casholas to burn that they can do that.
I've never known a video game company to have too much cash on their hands.
I can dream, all right?
Yeah.
I can dream.
No, I gotcha. It's just, obviously, whatever this was it took some time and some effort, and, they found a location with all these buildings and whatever, and so I don't know. It looks great. Like I said, Dishonored 2 is one of those things that I'm already going to play because Dishonored 1 kind of came out of nowhere, was really great. And as I said before, in spite of talking a bunch of shit about Bethesda, they've been putting out a lot of good games.
Yep.
So,
and from what I hear, Prey is going to be real good.
Prey 2 looks really good. I really can't wait to play that. Next up, another somewhat unnecessary live action trailer. This one made a little bit more sense to me, where This is for Titanfall 2, which by the time that this podcast comes out is actually out right now. But
Nice.
this kind of a dude walking around, a live action dude, and then a CGI Titan, and then they've kind of got these cut scenes of the two of them fighting. But did you get a chance to watch this trailer?
This one I didn't.
So there's a song here that it's that you probably know what I'm talking about. I think it was in Kill Bill, where it's like that. Bang, bang, he shot me down. Bang, bang, I hit the ground. Except that they reworked all the lyrics to be talking about lasers and robots and stuff like that.
As you do.
But it's in the same style. And I kind of like that. It doesn't totally work, but...
Can I just say that I want there to be more live-action trailers for video games? Please.
Yeah?
As an actor, this is incredibly exciting. And as somebody who makes films and like VR film content, this is also very exciting because it gives me more opportunity to work in like fantasy genres and make cool shit.
I'm actually just really interested in like it seems like that they've done a lot of we need somebody to build the equipment that this guy is wearing in the game so that we could do this live action thing, and they went out into a forest and all the CGI integration. I don't know, looks real good. We'll see. I've been hearing nothing but really good stuff about the Titanfall 2 campaign, so but it's a good trailer.
Hopefully those weren't real trees that they just burned down.
I doubt it. I don't think anything in that trailer except for this guy is real.
Yeah, just the dude. Lots of green screen.
Yeah. And then we got one more trailer, and this is a new trailer for Hello Neighbor.
Oh, okay. This game is intriguing to me.
Yeah, I actually got my hands on an alpha build of this game.
Oh, did you?
But it's so rough that I didn't really want to show it because...
Right, you don't want to give a false impression of it.
Well, it seems like a game that right now is so early in development and that people are really into it, but there's not really a whole lot there. Like when you start the game, you just start in the house across the street, and you're just supposed to know, like there are no instructions, there's no tooltips.
You just go.
It's a pre-alpha, like super, you're supposed to know what the hell you're doing build. But this is actually a really interesting trailer because this is kind of what we've seen before of this guy kind of wandering around in this guy's house while his neighbor is doing a thing. But at a certain point, he uses this key card to open up this door to a basement. And the basement is gargantuan. Like this is a 3.5 minute trailer, and at minute 1 he gets started going down to the basement, and the rest of it is just wandering around in this basement that's full of like candles and weird like sleeping bags and then a lot of it is kind of running from the guy in the house, but this basement just keeps going and going and going and going. I'm interested to see if they're able to deliver on this.
I hope they do,
because it seems like it could go either way. It's also really hard to judge because it is so early in their development time that it's like, this could the actual game could look completely different from this, and it wouldn't be surprising to me if this was just mostly prototype stuff. It's also hasn't been clear at any point why you're doing this. Like
maybe you're just creepy.
Maybe so.
Peepin' Tomsky.
Maybe so. Anyway, all right, we got a few more questions, or we got a few more news stories, and then we can go ahead and wrap this up. Microsoft has announced that they're doing some Windows 10 VR headsets.
Woo, woo, woo.
Yeah, they said that they are. Actually, it said that they announced this at the Microsoft October event. They're looking to do $299 headsets with no external sensors, with third parties like Dell and HP. This is interesting because you have to wonder what ecosystem this is going to sit in. Right now, Oculus and Vive and Sony VR all kind of have their own independent platform. So if somebody else starts making kind of generic third party, like are these going to be compatible with Oculus, or are they going to be compatible with... If they don't have any sensors, they can't do room scale VR, so they can't be like a Vive, but...
And it's interesting to me that they're working on both this and the HoloLens.
I don't think HoloLens is ever actually going to come out.
They have it out for developers.
Yeah, I don't... But I think like... A few years back, I don't know how many people remember this, but a few years back they actually had another project where it was like a table that was also a screen, where it was like a projected kind of down and then up or something at the same time. and it was like a blank table, but you could project anything you wanted onto it. But then it actually could relay that information back to a computer. So like if you touched the screen, it could react to your touch. They used it they had some stuff that was like, here's how you would do like virtual board gaming, right? Because you could project anything you want and then do it.
They use that demo with the HoloLens.
They also had a thing that they did for the Kinect for a while there that was a whole room setup they had where you put a projector on the ceiling that would project on all 4 walls of your room and react to where you were. I think Microsoft likes to do a lot of prototyping stuff like that because they had like 4 videos for whatever that room thing was. It was going to be $10,000 to put it in your house. Like they were never going to bring it to completion.
Yeah, the dev kit for the HoloLens is $3,000.
Yeah, I honestly don't feel the HoloLens is ever going to turn full production. I feel like that's going to be an internal thing that they showed off.
They're marketing it really hardcore right now for like industrial applications, like for room scale, like architectural projects, like building buildings and things, and for like medical students to learn how to like manipulate the body without actually killing somebody and things like that. I don't know. We'll see.
I could totally see it.
We'll see.
Totally see that. So now we have a bunch of just kind of like general announcement stuff. Watch Dogs 2 is gold. Done, printing, ready to go, which is good because I am looking forward quite a bit to Watch Dogs 2. Also, did you ever see the trailer for this game? It's called Lost Soul. It kind of made a little bit of a splash a while back, and it had this really long, like 15-minute trailer. The main character looks a lot like Noctis, but
that or Zach Fair from Crisis Core.
But it seems to play a lot more like a kind of Devil May Cry hacky slashy type of game.
Interesting. I don't think I saw this.
The big thing about it is that it's being made by one person. This one guy has been basically making it for a while. And this week, no new like trailer or information or anything, but it is going to be apparently a PlayStation 4 timed exclusive. So you PlayStation people can check that out. I know it's probably going to piss off a lot of people, but then this is the internet.
You know what, Xbox?
Yeah.
You got Lara Croft, all right? You can deal. Still mad about that. Still salty.
It's out.
I know it is. I know it is. That made me so mad. That was like a very personal betrayal for me.
Yeah?
That was one of the first 2 PlayStation games I ever played in the first generation of PlayStation was Lara Croft Tomb Raider. I loved that shit. I grew up adoring that character. Strong, sassy, female, smart, intelligent, adventuring, female Indiana Jones. And then they go and they just betray the PlayStation and go to feelings. Feelings.
Let's see. Neo, there was a large interview in my news kind of wrap up here with one of the developers on Neo, which is a kind of a feudal Japanese Dark Souls-y type of game being made by Team Ninja. And kind of one of the big takeaways that I got out of it was apparently, one, there is no easy mode, which Neo is
go
harder.
Big or go home.
Neo is harder than Dark Souls in a lot of ways. Like, I had a hard time figuring out the rhythm of how to actually play that game. Like, I played what I thought was almost the entirety of the demo, the first demo. It turns out there was like 2 other areas, and I just got stuck on a boss and couldn't get further forward. But it also says that the average completion of the game is going to be about 70 hours, which is...
You could totally play that the day before it comes out.
Yikes. yeah. Send me Neo the day before it comes out. Yeah. And also, I'm not trying to be Dr. Schadenfreude over here, but no plans to release Neo on the PC at this point. Apologies,
womp.
PC Master Race. There's been a lot of Jeff versus the PC gamers out there the last few weeks, which is kind of unintentional, but... yeah, whatever.
It happens.
Sorry, PC people. I would like to play it on the PC as well. So, Turtle Rock is done supporting Evolve, and Evolve Stage 2, the free-to-play version of Evolve that came out on PC a few months back, is probably never going to make it to consoles.
Sad
2K
times.
is still looking at that, but Turtle Rock had a nice little kind of ending where they said, we work for hire, so...
Pay us the monies.
We can't.
Get the thing.
Well, they got moved to another project. They can't really do anything.
That's what happens.
And last but not least, we'll skip over this. There's a whole like Uncharted movie is coming, but I don't ever believe that.
You don't?
No.
They're making a movie out of Ready Player One. Why couldn't they make an Uncharted movie?
Because it's like the Akira movie or the Ghost in the Shell movie.
Oh.
I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it. Now, Ghost in the Shell,
It's happening.
a lot closer to believing it, but they've only been talking about making a live action Akira movie for 25 years now or something stupid like that. I'm 40 years old, and like since I was a teenager and first saw Akira, I've been reading stories about how, oh no, bro, they're totally making an Akira movie.
It's totally happening.
Totally happening. Here's there's a new picture. It's like, well, that's not a real picture. Last but certainly not least, who are these people who I want to tear their heads off?
Oh.
First Four Figures is making a Great Grey Wolf Sif, who is a character in Dark Souls statue that is pretty amazing.
It looks gorgeous. The detail work.
Mm-hmm. It's Sif with the big sword, standing on top of the Grave of Artorias. There's actually there's a couple different versions, and one of them has a bunch of different swords that fit around there that are all different swords from original Dark Souls. This is great. I don't usually put things in my house because I don't like them, but I would actually get this.
A great statement right there.
Yeah, things that just you got to move them someday. I would love this thing because it's actually a really cool looking statue, and it's something that's very specific to Dark Souls, and I like it. Except $499. No, $529 for the regular and $549 for the exclusive version. And I'm sorry, I will buy a PlayStation VR before I buy a $500 statue of a wolf.
Well, that's fair.
Much as I like a
VR,
wolf.
the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah. Much as I like that wolf, much as I like Dark Souls, I can find better things to spend $500 on. So with that, we're done. That's all our news for this week.
Hey, wait, though.
What's up?
Wait, though.
What?
Did you hear about the new Pokemon Go update?
No. Do you want to talk about that?
I do a little.
Okay, well, tell us all about it.
They've put out a Halloween update.
Are all
it's
the Pokemon...
all spoops. All the Halloween spoops. Yeah, so the loading screen is no longer Gyarados. It's now Gengar.
Okay.
And the the ghost Pokemon are out in droves.
Okay.
So I was going through Mayfield Park yesterday on this film scouting trip, getting stills of like the forest and stuff with the 360 Theta Ricoh camera.
Sure.
And the park was just full of ghost Pokemon. Like in the space of 5 minutes, I caught a Ghastly, a Haunter, 3 Growlithe, and a Gengar.
Oh my God!
I caught a Gengar just out in the world.
That means
chilling.
Nothing to me.
He's the final evolved form of Ghastly and Haunter, and he's pretty hard to find out there. So, anybody who's into the Pokemon Go's, you want to update your app, and then you want to go troll because the ghosts they be out.
Okay.
And on top of that, they've reduced the amount of walking you have to do to get candy from your buddy.
Okay.
It's now instead of 3 kilometers, it's like 0.75. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, instead of 1 candy, you get 2 or 3 every time you complete that amount of walking.
Okay.
And on top of that, anytime that you trade that you trade in a Pokemon or that you catch one, you get double the amount of candy.
Okay.
So go do the thing, friends. You're welcome.
Yeah, I even cut a story that was Destiny is having their version of a Halloween event this year.
Everybody's doing Halloween shit. Apparently the Overwatch Halloween shit's great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I played it. Also, we played on Patreon this game called Slayaway Camp. It's great.
I like that name.
Puzzle game. We had the Asylum all week this week, which I'm going to throw together into a playlist for people to watch later on. But
nice.
Anyway, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to answer questions. mail@ragelight.com is the email address. So stick around, and we'll see you in a minute.
Bye.
And we're back.
All right.
Which is a little bit ironic considering it's been like 14 hours since we first went on break. We had a very long break. It was very relaxing.
You know what? We're enjoying our time off.
Everybody got some sleep.
Played some horror games. Scared the crap out of myself.
We're refreshed. Everybody's ready to go.
Got our coffee.
Yep.
It's good.
Yep. And we're back. And we've got some questions. But before we get to the questions, I have a real quick Shorty Pants game review this week because the first DLC for Dark Souls 3 came out.
Oh, that's right. Tell us all about it.
Yep, Ashes of Ariandel. It's actually been getting a lot of criticism because it was $15 and it's only about, like, I beat the entire thing in about 3-ish hours, like from top to bottom, doing literally everything.
Okay.
And anybody who's been a fan of the Souls series knows that the Souls series tends to have really robust DLC. Like the old Hunters DLC for Bloodborne was like an additional like 6 to 8 hours worth of content. So this is seen as like very short. It was kind of enjoyable. It does a biome that I like in Souls, which is icy snow wasteland.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of really kind of crazy, these new fly enemies. They're like half man, half fly, and they're just gross.
That's creepy.
Buzz around and spit like maggots on you. But it was okay. It didn't really bolster, I think, a lot of the parts of the story that people had expected it to fill in, but it was more Dark Souls 3. I honestly feel like if you're really into Dark Souls 3, you probably already played it. And if you're not really into Dark Souls 3, it might be better to just wait for the Game of the Year / Steam Winter Sale when it goes on sale or whatever.
Wiener. Well, they're doing a Halloween sale right now, too.
Yes. But yeah, it was all right. It was okay. It was not the best thing I've ever played. It was not the worst thing I've ever played. Kind of
Fair enough.
on the weaker end of DLCs for Dark Souls, just because Dark Souls and Bloodborne and stuff like that tends to have really solid DLCs, and this was just kind of like, it's okay. But there's one more. It's supposed to be a little bit bigger. Nice. We'll see whether or not that works.
I got one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I took a chance. I was looking for some new games to play for horror games because I'm really picky about my horror-y kind of things. I like psychological stuff, which we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And I downloaded one off of Steam. It's called Adam Wolf. You heard of it?
No.
So it's outside of the realm of the kind of game you normally play.
Okay.
It's I thought it was like a hidden object game.
Oh, gross.
One of those puzzle ones. Hey, I like those every once in a while. My brain likes to stretch and likes to find things.
Okay.
So every once in a while I'll play one of those games, like when I'm in the mood for like a Sudoku kind of a thing. So I picked this one because it's like this almost like a Dresden Files kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Where he's a supernatural detective. And I liked the art style of it. It looked really pretty. So I got into playing it, and it's not actually a hidden object game. It's very story based. Like there's this story that's driving the whole thing. And there are a couple scenes where you have to find something, but it's more puzzle oriented. I enjoyed it. I played through the entire first chapter last night on my stream. You can check it out on the Weirdlings Twitch channel.
Okay.
I enjoyed it, and I ended up downloading the whole shtick, and I'm going to keep playing it. It's good stuff.
Like Uninvited or Shadowgate kind of thing. I don't know if you've ever played any of those.
Kind of like that kind of a thing.
All right,
and it's got this really cool underlying storyline where you've got this like fire elemental and this ancient dagger and this cult of people that want to live forever and backstabbing and betrayal, and it's really cool. And the voice acting is actually really decent in it. I liked it.
Now it looks like it's episodic, and it's $13 for all the episodes, but only the first one is out right now, and that's $4 essentially.
So I bought the first one originally because I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, and I finished that, and then so I downloaded the whole season pass because it's on Steam sale right now. So it was like what, $15 total. Yeah. It looks like you save a little bit if you buy the whole thing, but yeah, you can get it for $4. And it took me maybe 2.5 hours to get through the first chapter, like the first session of it. It's good stuff.
And the guy looks like he's out of like Supernatural or something like that.
Yeah, I dig that style. It's cool.
All right. Mail@ragesite.com is the email address to send in your questions. And our first one this week comes in from Russ. And Russ says,
Hey, Russ.
Hey, Jeff and Jennifer. Nice and fun question for you both. People complain about generic protagonists or cardboard archetypes being recycled a lot of times in games. What traits or quirks do you like to see in a main character or supporting NPC to make them endearing to you? What traits or small ticks make a character more human to you? Can you think of any characters that stuck with you after you finished playing based on their attitude or personality? Ha. Thanks. Hope you got enough questions. Russ. We actually got a ton of questions this week. So, what do you think?
I have a couple.
Okay.
I like the reticent hero. So, I mean, I know.
Tell me. I'm just like I'm doing my Johnny Carson. This is such an outdated reference. I'm opening up my thing. Spiky hair, big swords, reticent hero.
You would go there. Yeah, we'll go for Cloud and Squall. Yeah, sure.
Things Jennifer likes in a main protagonist.
We'll go for them. Well, I like their sassy, underhanded lines is what I like.
Okay.
They're like, yeah, whatever. Or fuck you, just leave me alone. I love that. I don't know. I dig it. That and then the anti-hero.
Okay.
I dig a good anti-hero, like a Cypher.
Okay.
Like a screw the world, I'm going to go do my thing, I'm wounded. I don't know. I dig it.
I mean, anytime that a character has some underlying pathos in addition to their whole main character thing, I like that. Anytime that you've got, especially if you can subvert that stuff a little bit. I'm sorry, it's so early, and by so early I mean like 11 a.m. But I'm trying to think of characters that kind of do both. I mean, when the question asking like what characters do you like the best, I'm trying to think, and the one that just keeps popping into my head is Nathan Drake, and it's just because
I love him.
He's so charming. He's just so charming. I mean, like, I don't know if there's any like real underlying darkness to Nathan Drake. There's maybe a little bit in there.
He's got his like daddy issues.
He's got a little bit in there, yeah. But
he's just heart of gold, sassy as all get out.
Yep. Just
wanderlust to the max.
It's like they distilled the chemical formula for likable human being. Like just this much Han Solo crossed with like this much other Han Solo crossed with. It's like they took all of Harrison Ford's different characters and distilled them
blended
down. Yeah,
I'm a fan of that.
With just a pinch of Brendan Fraser on top, and then we're good to go.
Ooh, I've got another one too.
Okay.
The strong, sassy, dominant female character.
Mm-hmm.
So you're Lara Croft, you're Rose from Legend of Dragoon, you're Sorceress Adia from Final Fantasy VIII.
Okay.
Yeah, you're Lulu from Final Fantasy
Here's
10.
my challenge. Can you give me a non-Square Enix character that falls into this category?
Have I ever played a game that's non-Square Enix? I don't know.
You were talking about Lara Croft before. She's
in that family though.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Got a little bit of a.
I love her.
A little bit of a cipher. I'm trying to think of. I do also really like true, honest to God humor in games, and I personally like really vulgar humor. So,
shock.
Like Saints, the President, the main character in Saints Row 4, all the characters in Saints Row 4. I love those folks. Bulletstorm is another one that's real high up on my list. The main character starts out as a very kind of like gruff Marcus Phoenix, but then he's got like these really weird swear phrases that get thrown in there.
Ooh.
I don't know.
What about like Danganronpa? There are some really good characters that are really fucked up, kind of humorous in that game.
I don't know that game. I'm afraid.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
You don't know Danganronpa.
I don't.
Stop the podcast right now. You need to play that. That game is a mind fuck.
Okay.
And it's hilarious, and it's nuanced, and it's long, and you need to play that game.
All right.
My favorite Twitch streamer, Artilo Zelda, she played it, and there's 3 games, I think, and she plays them on her Twitch stream, and it's just the most entertaining game I've ever seen played.
What kind of game is it?
It's an anime-based murder mystery game. It's like a combination of Battle Royale. Okay. In that it's a bunch of kids that have to kill each other in order to survive, kind of a thing.
All right.
And a murder mystery. So like each segment, somebody gets murdered, and you have to put the pieces together and figure out how they got murdered and who did it.
Okay.
And if you get it right and figure out who did it, that person dies. If you don't get it right, then the person who guessed wrong dies. It's quite good.
Okay. That sounds an awful lot like this other Japanese game that I played. I can't think of it. Where it's like what the hell is the name of it? It's not Lost Odyssey. It's something else. Anyway, it's like this giant tower, and you've got like these 13 psychics that all have different powers, and you're fighting these robots. But then every time you want to move up a level in the tower, like there's this bad guy that's like there's a traitor in your group, and you have to suss out who the traitor is, and you have to make a decision.
Yeah, it's like that.
So, yeah, somebody dies every step of the way.
And the Overseer is this giant stuffed teddy bear that's super fucking sadistic.
I kind of feel like I need to play this game.
You need to play this game. I'm really surprised that you haven't played it. It's
no, wait,
so
good.
Is
it a visual novel? Does it have like actual gameplay? Do you like?
No, there's actual gameplay to it.
Okay,
like there's guns you have to shoot. And
okay.
It's more story based, but it's super good. It's really engaging.
Okay.
You'll dig it, and it would be really great for a stream, or not a stream, for a
like a dojo or video.
Yeah.
I don't know, Russ. To sum it up, I would say that people like characters that have character.
Yes.
I feel like it isn't quantifiable, but you can really tell when a character is well written, and they're really endearing.
Ooh.
What's that?
Fem Shep.
Oh yeah.
There
you think
go.
so?
There
okay.
you go.
Okay.
There's a Non-Square Enix character.
I was actually just thinking that I was trying to think of a good like you see kind of generic writing examples all the time, but like GLaDOS in Portal 2 is a great character, and I think it's just because of how passive aggressively shitty she is. You haven't played Portal 2, have you?
Nope.
There's this really subtle part in the beginning of Portal 2 where, because you know that Portal is actually really interesting because Chell is the main character, so it's like you have a female main character and you have a female main antagonist in GLaDOS, and there's a part very early on in Portal 2 where Chell is getting on this pad that makes you bounce up in the air. And when she hits on it, GLaDOS is like, "Oh, that didn't work. Looks like you might have put on a few pounds." And then she's like, "Most people in cryostasis tends to lose weight, but good for you for bucking the odds and bulking up a little bit."
Wow.
And so she makes you jump on this pad like 2 or 3 times and keeps saying, "I'm going to increase the power," but it doesn't do anything. And she finally like, "You know what? I've got this," and like lowers the ceiling of the puzzle. And it's such a kind of weirdly passive aggressive dig at your character.
That's
and then
funny.
she like works that into it a few times, like without ever being like, "Haha, fatty, fatty, fat, fat," like an easy cheap shot. It's this real kind of subtle passive aggressive shittiness.
All right, I need to play this.
Oh, Portal and Portal 2 are great.
My list is growing.
All right, our next question comes in from Brian, and I picked this one out specifically for you.
Hey, Brian,
Jennifer.
how's it going?
Brian says, "Hey, Jeff and Jennifer, longtime listener since before the loading bar even got its name, first-time writer." That would be before I was even on the loading bar. So.
Wow.
After over a decade of denial, I think I finally come to the realization that I don't actually like JRPGs. In general, I tend to just tolerate the gameplay portions of JRPGs because I love the imaginative worlds, epic stories, and character relationships and interactions. What I think it comes down to is the combination of random encounters, grinding, and turn-based combat that sometimes feels like it's just wasting your time and keeping you from getting to the interesting parts. I'm not opposed to interesting turn-based combat, but my favorite systems have been ones with little real-time elements like Paper Mario and Lost Odyssey's timing animations. Granted, the last JRPG I played was Lost Odyssey on the 360, so maybe I'm out of touch with the genre. My question then is, are there JRPGs out there without the tedium of grinding and random encounters, preferably with real-time elements in combat? Rage and prosper, Brian. And then he says hard mode. The only modern platforms I have nowadays are the 3DS and the PC. Well, that definitely is going to lower your choices a little bit.
This hurts my heart, friend.
No,
but
well,
you know,
but you understand.
But
You
JRPGs
understand.
aren't for everybody. We are an acquired taste, for sure. You have to have the demeanor for them.
Allow me to play devil's advocate.
Of course.
Okay, because I can actually sympathize quite a bit with Brian about how
Right.
in a lot of JRPGs, the story is good, the characters are good, the setting is good, you know, all this stuff. The music is good, the art style is great. It's just that it's stuck in this what a lot of us would consider to be a very old and outdated idea. I mean, I was grinding when I was a kid. If you signed up for Nintendo Power, they sent you a free copy of Dragon Warrior, the first Dragon Warrior.
Right.
And as a 12-year-old, I didn't understand the concept of grinding, and so I couldn't finish Dragon Warrior because I would just keep trying to move forward, and I'd hit these big enemies. They would kill me, and then I would just be like, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong. So then I'd go back and I'd try a different spell, and that wouldn't work, and they would kill me. And it never occurred to me that the way to beat this enemy is you need to walk back and forth in this one area, kill everything there for 12 hours until you get to level 1 billion. Then you can just walk through the rest of the game.
Yes, and then just wreck.
So
games that are of the JRPG genre that are more palatable in the grind. Okay, I have 2 that pop into my brain.
Okay.
He didn't mention what his definition of modern is. So going back to the first PlayStation generation, the game that I would suggest for you is Legend of Dragoon.
Okay.
Now, this is a game that has turn-based roleplay. It is a longer game. It was actually, I think, one of the first game I ever played on PlayStation that has 4 discs. The storyline is really great. The battles aren't all that long. And there is a element of real time to the battles in that each character has certain characteristics that there are timing elements in the battle.
Okay.
So when Dart, the main character, is about to attack somebody with his sword, there's a timing element to it that if you get it just right, he does additional damage and does these additional attacks and things like that.
Okay.
And the Dragoon forms are really beautiful. The story is fantastic. But you don't have to ever grind levels in order to continue through the game. You have to go from location to location. So there are some random encounters in it, but the game lets you know when those are about to happen.
Okay.
Like you have, I think it's like a little arrow over your head that goes from like blue to green to yellow to red when you're about to get a battle. So that's a thing. But those battles are all very short and easy to navigate through, and there's that element of real time to it that makes it easy.
Okay.
But you don't have, there's never really a boss that you get to that you're not beefed up enough to beat. It's more story based. So there's that one, and then one that is completely and totally self-driven with no element of the grind needed at all. Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy X is a really great game. It drives itself. There's never really a point ever where you're left alone long enough that you're just grinding at all.
That seemed to be, at least in my mind, around the point where Square really started to fine-tune their game so that Final Fantasy X isn't egregious with its random encounter battles.
Right.
And as long as you don't...
They're filler. They're a little filler that's peppered in every once in a while, but the majority of the game is that story-based. There are really good boss fights, but the majority of the interest in that game is the sphere system.
Yeah.
Is figuring out how you want to fine-tune each character. That was one of the first times that you got to do that in a Final Fantasy game too, where you get to determine what path you want that character to take. Not every character is stuck in a certain amount of things.
Yeah.
So and the game itself isn't all that long. I want to say maybe like 10, 15 hours. It's not that long.
It depends. It depends on whether you're sticking to the core storyline or whether you're starting to branch off into it. There's like a couple of other little sub areas that you can go to.
You can totally ignore Blitzball. You can ignore all the little side questy stuff and grind through that whole game in like 15 hours maybe.
I have a friend who is just recently going and playing back through Final Fantasy X.
Yeah.
And she was at the point where she's trying to get all the ultimate weapons, and she just started messaging me all the time about like, I fucking hate Blitzball.
I hate Blitzball with a passion. I never understood it. Okay, guys, I don't sports ball.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I play roller derby because there are no balls involved.
Sure.
Pun intended. There's none. So there's no throwing, there's no accuracy. You skate around in a circle, you beat bitches up with your hips, and that's it.
Yep.
So Blitzball and I never really got along. I can't with it. So I feel you.
I would say that I've got a couple of recommendations in the JRPG sphere. One is not going to be accessible to you if you just have 3DS and PC, and that is so the Shin Megami Persona 4.
Oh, great game.
Doesn't really, but see, Persona 4 is a weird duck because Persona 4 explicitly tells you that in Persona 4, in the nighttime, you can go into these dungeons and you can do dungeon battles, right? But Persona 4 is explicit about saying, just because you walk back and forth and grind in a dungeon, you'll still lose when you get to the boss if you don't do the daytime social link elements, which strengthen your party's ability to do stuff. So Persona 4 has a few things that I feel like will up the... a few things that it does really well. And some of these actually translate over into Tokyo Mirage Sessions, but then you have to have a Wii U for that. Persona 4's combat system is a weird rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Vulcan, whatever. It's like, every element has an opposing element. And a lot of the game is just figuring out what enemies react to which elements, because once you know that enemy is weak to lightning and then you hit them with lightning, then everything just goes super smooth. So a lot of it is figuring out each kind of enemy one at a time until you get the hang of it, and then it's fine. It also has a system where if you manage to hit an enemy with the element that they're weak to, they will get stunned. And if you stunned all the enemies, then you could just hit one button and your entire team goes in and there's a big cloud and there's arms and legs and swords flying out of it. And then all the enemies take a huge amount of damage.
Right.
They also have another option later on if you're over leveled for an area that is an auto battle where it's just everything is in fast forward and it's just your characters doing attacks. So if you're over leveled, that'll save you a lot of time.
That's nice.
All that stuff adds up to basically make the combat dynamic and interesting, but not a huge pain in the ass. Also, the overworld are these randomly generated dungeons, and you can see the enemies and choose whether you want to fight them or not. So if you do want to run past them, you can do that. If you're on the 3DS, Bravely Default also has another kind of auto battle system where if you want to grind, you can essentially set this switch to auto battle, and then you can just like walk back and forth. And anytime you go into combat, your characters will all just do attack. So you can kind of run it on auto. You can kind of play it just one hand, walking back and forth until you get into a battle, and then your guys take care of that, and then you go to the next battle, and you go to the next battle. And then, strangely enough, in that particular genre, I'd also say on the PC, they're super cheap. I feel like they get a real bad rap, but they're super cheap. The Final Fantasy 13 series actually does a lot to deal with what you're talking about.
I've heard that game was a really nice blend of that, because that's when Square started really paying attention to changing their system.
Yeah.
And I've not played 13 yet. I have it now, but I haven't played it. Everybody that I've talked to says that it was a really nice segue away from the grind of the normal JRPG.
Well, I will say that I'm not going to sit here and say Final Fantasy 13's a perfect game. Sure. I find Lightning to be incredibly boring as a character because she's kind of the lady version of the stoic Cloud person who I'm not really a huge fan of, except that it's very much just like, I'm a soldier, it's my duty. Yeah, that's all I care about is my sister, and it's like, there's one in every game. My main character. But what's interesting, it's also, the people who say Final Fantasy 13 is a big long hallway, they are correct. There are no twists, there are no turns, there are no sub-objectives, there are no dungeons. They have basically this one main track that you just walk down from the beginning of the game until right near the end of the game. There's a big open area where you can do some little sub stuff, but it's mostly just hunting quests, trying to get the material to make everybody's ultimate weapon. But the interesting thing about Final Fantasy 13 is that the combat system was changed from being micro to being macro. So instead of directly controlling each individual person, which you can do very shortly, you'll get a party where you're basically assigning like one of 3 or 4 different kind of party tactical makeups, and then you switch between those on the fly. So the characters are all doing the fighting on their own automatically based on how you've set them up. And then it's like, oh, the boss is getting ready to do a big thing. I need to switch everybody over to defense, and they will all automatically shift into a defensive posture. And then when that happens, you could be like, now I need everybody to trigger their blah, blah, blah. So that actually works well because it lets you kind of oversee the battle instead of having to micromanage every individual turn. And then the other one is Final Fantasy 13-3, or Lightning Returns, because they decided to change the name of it at the end. And that one is interesting because, again, the story is a little weird. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to go in order because I actually think that the Final Fantasy 13 series gets a little bit of a bad rap from people. Right. Final Fantasy 13-1 is, and don't get me wrong, again, as I've even said on this podcast, the story is convoluted as shit. Square,
it's Final Fantasy. Come on.
Square has overnamed the hell out of all of the things. Like there's the sea, the La Sea, the Foul Sea, and everybody's in Cocoon, and there's Cocoon, and then there's the main world, and it's like, just call it something else. Like quit using CIE as the suffix for every other term in your game because it makes it confusing for me to keep it all straight. But at the end of Final Fantasy 13, you're left in a bit of a lurch, and Final Fantasy 13-2 actually takes place with a different character later on and has this kind of Chrono Trigger-y vibe to it where you're actually moving through a timeline, like doing stuff in the past to affect the future, doing stuff in the future to affect this piece, finding information in the future and taking it back to the past. And your character, you've got one character that's a sub-character from Final Fantasy 13, one character that's a brand new character, and then the third slot in your party is made up of Pokemon-style monster catches where you catch the Final Fantasy monsters out of the world, and then you develop them into the third person in your party. Nice. So it's like you've got these two main characters that you're developing, and then you're switching out that third slot with a bunch of different monsters, which is cool. And then 13-3... Lightning Returns is probably the one that would be the most dynamic because there is no party in 13.3 and all you're controlling is lightning. But the difference is that lightning has it's not quite as, I don't know what your feelings are about dress spheres, Jennifer, but the way that it works is that lightning has like 4 different clothing slots that you can slot in different roles and different abilities.
Happened? I fell asleep.
But what it is it actually, the whole thing happens in real time. So every one of the face buttons is a different ability that lightning has, and then you're on the fly moving lightning by herself around and randomly switching between these different loadouts. So it's actually a much more dynamic game to play. It actually plays more like an action-y type game than it does just a standard JRPG. So
it's kind of like the switch that they made between Final Fantasy VII and Dirge of Cerberus, where it's the same characters from the world, but it's very much more action based.
Yeah, it's still definitely a Final Fantasy style game. It's still definitely a JRPG, but it's not. But it is different. But honestly, I feel like the real crack on the question that you're asking is you got to find a genre that you're into.
It's true.
If you like sci-fi, you might check out some of the Xenoblade Chronicles stuff, because I know that people really like that. If you like fantasy, obviously Final Fantasy. But then there's stuff like on the 3DS, all of the not Ogre Tactics, the Fire Emblem games, tactical RPGs, which all have really great stories that are really interesting. It's really more about finding the specific thing that works for you. Like the last Fire Emblem game was actually 2 different games, and one of them was like feudal Japan style. The other one was like medieval European style. So, and then you just have to like calm down and not be in a hurry.
That's true.
All right, our next question comes in from Katie J. Katie J says, "Dear tall drinks of water of Rage Select,
Ooh.
I'm going to keep this short, with Battlefield 1 giving us a huge interactive experience with the hellish acts of violence of World War I. It also gave us a feeling of going across the country and what it was like to see the world change before your eyes. My question is, what game made you feel like it truly understood and respected the story it was telling you? You can expand it to games based on already existing properties or history. With love and joy always, loyal patron KTJ." So the question is, what game made you feel like it truly understood and respected the story it was telling you? I'm gonna take Dark Souls and Metal Gear off the table because those are both answers, and I could talk about them for a while. But I'm gonna just figure something else out. Yeah, I know. There's a reason my favorite games are my favorite games. There's a reason. Games that really respected the story that they were telling you. That's
deep.
Yeah.
That's nuanced and layered and
I gotta I don't know. It depends on how vigilant you want to be in answering the question, right? I mean, like, most games that aren't either terrible or a cash grab tend to respect their own story, or else we wouldn't think very highly of them, or else we'd be like, well, this is a garbage game. But I'm trying to think of something that really sticks out in that particular, really respected the story it was telling you. Oh, you know what? I've got an answer for this. It's another game that is a cult classic, or a cult, not classic, but it's a cult game that has gotten more attention, but when it first came out, it wasn't getting very much attention. It's a game called Spec Ops: The Line. And
heard of it.
Yeah, it's kind of just Conrad's Heart of Darkness, except you're going into Dubai that's been smashed by a sandstorm with all this military conflict going on in it, and there's a U.S. military commander who's gone rogue and scooped up a bunch of the insurgents and made them into his own private army, and it's like your guy is venturing into this landscape to try to get this general out of there. And one of the reasons that it comes to mind is because Spec Ops: The Line respects its story almost more than it does the player, because it's actually kind of not fun to play the game. But then you've got a bunch of think pieces out there about how, like, well, maybe that was the whole point, because this is war and it's not supposed to be fun. But Spec Ops: The Line actually takes so much credence in its story. There's actually a part where the game asks you to do something that is very traditionally video gamey, especially in war-type video games. And then when you're done with that, kind of shoves it in your face and goes, now look at what you did. That's horrible if you look at it. If it's not just the screen goes black and it's time for level 2. Like, now you have to walk through the remains of what you've just done and actually address that, in a personal way. It's also the main character in the story gets more and more kind of like, because they have the whole system where like the damage that the character takes kind of stays with them and is reflected in the character model. So at the beginning of the game, kind of very kind of Iraqi desert kind of put together soldier, and as the game goes on, you get burned and scorched and charred, and by the end, it's like your character looks like what Martin Sheen at the end of Apocalypse Now, with just like this bright, mad eyes and all charred up and stuff like that. So that's an interesting one. It's an interesting one that I think is really, really in it. I mean, I said I wouldn't say it, but most of the Metal Gear games really are.
They are really good.
Up their own ass about their storyline, and because Kojima got to really just kind of have this iron grip on them, they really had a singular vision of what they wanted to do, and then kind of followed through, except for the last one, because fuck Konami.
Okay, I got 2.
All right.
And you picked like a more realistic, like real world storytelling kind of genre, so I guess I'll take the other end of that for balance sake. So I've been playing a lot of PC games lately because I'm catching up in the fact that I've only ever had consoles for the longest time. I had a shitty laptop that didn't really get the job done. So there are 2 games that pop into my brain. Both of them are indie titles. Both of them have the same kind of a feel to them. One is called Oxenfree, and I know I've talked about it before briefly.
I haven't played it. It's on my list, but
the story that it's really telling is an undertone to the overt storyline.
Okay.
So you can piece together a whole lot of it if you pay attention, but you can miss it if you're not really paying attention. And the story that it's telling is about like the cognizance of the military and its effect on people. And
that's an Oxenfree?
Oh yeah. Well, because
I need to play that game.
I mean, spoiler alert for people who don't want to know what the actual storyline to Oxenfree is. Go play it. It's great. You'll love it. It'll fuck with your brain, and it's
I don't want to know what it is. I want to put my microphone in my ear and go la 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 la.
Okay, well then I won't go into it. But some shit happens on this island in the past, and there are huge repercussions because of it. And there's a giant military cover up of it.
Okay.
And through the course of this game, you're getting the bits and pieces from the people that experienced it through letters and electronic ghost communications and things. And you get the story of what's going on. And it's really deep. Like, it's some deep shit.
Okay.
So there's that one. And the whole game is this picking up the pieces of this story. And that's basically all this game is finding out this story.
All right.
There's that one. And then there's this other one that is more fantastically based. It's from a Swedish indie developer, the name of which I can't remember off the tip of my tongue, but it's called Yearwalk.
Oh, yeah.
And I played it in one night, and I loved the art style. It's very pretty. It's very haunting and creepifying, but it gives you this underlying story of Swedish folklore and the dark and twisty basis of this folklore system, and you're experiencing it in this darkened wood at night, and you're actually walking through all of the steps of this piece of mythology. And I just really loved learning that story. And the cool part of it is that when you start the game, you're given a journal that has the basic mythology of Sweden in it. It's like, there's this character, and this is what this character means, and this is character, and this does this. And then you experience all these things in the game. And you can play it through in one night. It's super short. I think I played it through in like 3 hours.
Yep. Jason and I played it for Patreon a long time ago, but it is now incumbent upon me to pass along the comments that were said to us.
Sure.
There's actually a lot more going on in that game that only starts to show up when you start playing it a second and a third time.
Oh.
When we played through it the first time, there were a lot of people that were like, yeah, that's great and all, but you missed all this stuff that doesn't start to show up until you basically start a second new game.
Like there's actual new elements in the game.
I believe so. I never wanted.
I only played it once.
I never dug into it because if we ever did decide to do that, I didn't want to be spoiling myself. But I have heard a lot of people saying that when you play through the first time, you're like getting the surface level, but then as you play through more, that you end up digging deeper and deeper and deeper kind of into what's going on.
Well,
there.
I might have to play it again then because I want to know.
Yep.
I want to know more stuff. I enjoyed it. Freaked my shit out, but I enjoyed it.
Have you ever played Stanley Parable?
No. I do love parables, though.
Stanley Parable, I never got a chance to really dig into, but the Stanley Parable it's really difficult to describe. It's like you are in an office and you're at a desk and you're doing your work and there's a narrator that's talking about what you're doing, and then you start doing things and it becomes this weird, like recursive, like you do a thing and then the game starts over again, but then things are different, but then the game starts over again, and now there's new stuff over here, and the narrator is talking about it the entire time. The same person who made that also made a game. What's it called? Okay. Stanley Parable. I can go from there. The Beginner's Guide, I believe, which wasn't as well received. Actually, that's a pretty good answer to The Beginner's Guide. It's another good answer to Katie's question about what games felt like they truly understood and respected the story that they were telling. So The Beginner's Guide is so strange because it's...
When you've mentioned this game to me before, because it's at the top of my games playlist.
Yeah, it's about it's a guy... It's a weird thing where it's there was a guy who used to make video games, but they were half video games and half like art pieces. And the Beginner's Guide is like this other person who knew this person who compiled all of their work together into like an interactive experience and is narrating the whole thing about what they think that this game meant and where it falls on the timeline and blah, blah, blah. It's really surreal, and it takes about an hour, but it was, I mean, like, I've got a cold, rusty pump in my chest where your humans keep your emotion muscles, but I actually got a little choked up towards the end of this, and I think that a little bit of it was that it talks a lot about ideas of creativity and a lot of ideas about other people's creativity and fandom, and there's a whole lot of stuff in the Beginner's Guide, which is
writing it down
pretty incredible. So, and this question might have gone on a little bit too long as well, but I also feel Silent Hill 2. But that's just me. I like Silent Hill 2 quite a bit. Let's see. This next one comes in from Vanish Knight. Vanish Knight says, "Hello, Jeff and Jennifer. I have several questions about the Metroid property. Why do some gamers prefer to play Metroid as a side-scroller rather than a first- or third-person point of view? I personally love playing Metroid Prime. Why does Nintendo take down fan work like AM2R and not Metroid The Sky Calls if they're so careful about their property? And what perspective do you think the new proper Metroid game will be? Side-scrolling, first-person, third-person, etc." So,
there's a lot there.
Yeah, there's quite a few questions. So, first off, we have to establish: are you a fan of Metroid? You like Metroid? What's your Metroid experience?
I am very much a fan of the style and the system.
Mm-hmm.
I've played games that are in that same style and system, but I have not played Metroid.
Okay.
I have several friends who are very, very devout Metroid fans.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a friend who just has tattoos for days about it, but that is one that I just never experienced growing up.
Okay. Well, let me then see what I can do, Vanish Knight, about answering this question.
You're all on your own here.
Well, first, why do some gamers prefer to play Metroid as a side-scroller rather than a first- or third-person point of view? Well, there's
side-scrollers. They're fun.
It's a different type of game. First-person tends to... if I had thought about this a little bit longer, I could probably point to something specific, but there's a simplicity and an easy elegance to side-scroller that is easy for people to pick up and easy to understand and easy to get into. And it's just a different type of feel of a game rather than a first-person shooter. I mean, just think about the fact that on a side-scroller, you're generally using something like the D-pad to move and you're using your buttons for attack, whereas in a first-person shooter, you're using analog sticks to move and you're using shoulder buttons to attack. Like, it's literally just a different feel of the way a controller is set up. Also, Vanish Knight, I don't know how old you are, but you have to remember Nintendo, or Metroid 2, The Return of Samus, and Super Metroid, the originators of the franchise, were side-scrolling games.
Yep.
So for those of us that are old enough to remember that, I don't have any real serious problem with Metroid Prime. I played Metroid Prime and 2, and I didn't play 3 because I hate them.
And what is Metroid Prime like?
It's a first-person game.
It's a first-person.
It was when on the GameCube, they basically started this set of prequel games as a first-person. They were actually developed by there's some local team here in Austin that was doing them. So they had the first 2 on the GameCube, and then the third one was on the Wii. And I don't want to play I don't want to be reaching and waggling and that stuff.
It's not my style.
But they were good. I mean, they still had a lot of that same Metroidvania feel. They were a little bit harder to play because you had to, the map in original Metroid, you pop it open, it's a 2D map, right? You can see exactly where you're supposed to be. Or in Metroid Prime, Super Metroid, I should say. Metroid Prime, you have this 3-dimensional map, so you're turning it around and being like, okay, so now I need to go over here, and then I need to go up here. It was fine. It didn't have the kind of snappy, simplistic style of Metroid that I like. And to talk a little bit further about that, Vanish Knight, if you go on Steam right now, you will see tons of side-scrolling video games. Side-scrollers are not dead by any stretch of the imagination. They're totally out there because they're very easy to understand, and they're a skill set that a lot of us gamers enjoy, as opposed to first-person shooters, which can feel locked out to a lot of people. I mean, I know people who are newer gamers who can't play first-person shooters because they make them want to throw up because of all the jerky screen shake motion and stuff like that.
Drunken cameraman syndrome, it's a thing.
Yep. So there's that. Like I said, I don't have any problem with Metroid Prime, but I think that Super Metroid is a much superior game to Metroid Prime. As far as why does Nintendo take down fan works like AM2R but not Metroid the Sky Calls, I didn't look this up before, but apparently the Metroid the Sky Falls is a fan film about Metroid with Jessica Chobot as
Hey girl.
Samus. Whereas AM2R is a video game. So
yeah, different properties. Basically.
There's different properties, different types of copyright on them. An interactive property like a video game is definitely going to be like if you're trying to defend your copyright on an interactive property like a video game, then letting something like a fan film get made isn't really going to do anything there. But if you let people start making actual games based on your property, then that's going to make things a little bit more difficult.
And the general rule for things like fan films, as far as I've been involved in, is that if you're not monetizing it in any way, if you're not trying to make money off of it, they'll probably let it go because it's just going to give more hype to their brand.
Yep.
But the moment that you start trying to sell it to people is when you run into issues, especially the more money you make off of it. Like if you're making $1 million+ off of something, they're going to want their piece of it. Yeah. Which is a big thing right now with like DC and Marvel comic fan films and things. Lots of people are doing fan films of like DC comics, and DC has publicly come out and said like, hey, as long as you're not monetizing your shit, fine, do whatever you want. But if you're making money, we want our cut. Yeah. This film looks amazing.
Yeah, it does. I've never seen it before. I'm kind of mesmerized.
It looks really well done. I need to see this.
Chozo ball thing there. But so anyway, and especially AM2R, because AM2R was specifically a remake of an existing Nintendo game. It wasn't even a brand new thing. Also, it's never worth noting that Nintendo traditionally is incredibly litigious. And
litigious.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Buzzword of the day.
Like they would go after websites that hosted ROMs of their games because they were so anti-emulation that where you could find Sega and Neo Geo stuff, Nintendo would actually put out cease and desist orders against larger sites in an area where I'm not saying that emulation, it's not legal technically,
Right.
but a lot of companies will just kind of overlook it because those games are so old that they don't care. Nintendo, they care, and they have the legal powers to go out there and really get shitty about it if they want to.
Nintendo cares a lot.
Yeah.
They care more than most people.
And finally, what perspective do you think the next proper Metroid will be? Side-scrolling, first-person, third-person, etc.
Give me more side-scrolling, baby. Give me.
I
don't
don't
think it'll happen,
see. That was what I would like to see.
Yeah, that's what I would want to see.
I would like to see side-scrolling. I don't think that Nintendo will do that. In fact, I think it's going to be a long time before we see anything Metroid related.
They've got so much crap they're working on right now. And I don't mean crap like it's crap. I mean just there's so much stuff they're doing.
Yep.
It's going to be a minute.
When we just look at the sizzle reel for the Switch, you've got a new Mario in development.
Right.
You've got a different version of Splatoon in development. There's a new Mario Kart in development that was in that trailer. They're going to have
that
their
Mario stick to death.
Yeah. Also, it's worth noting, Vanish Knight, it's worth noting for everybody listening that Nintendo has not made a proper Metroid game since Super Metroid. Let me double check this. Let me make sure I'm not talking about my butt. But all of the Metroid Prime games were made by a third-party company, and then before that after that you had Metroid Other M, which was made by Team Ninja. So the last one that would have been wait, there's that dumb new one, Metroid Prime Federation Force. That I believe was okay. So Metroid Prime Fusion Force was made by Next Level Games, which is not Nintendo. They're a Canadian group. Metroid Prime and its sequels, I believe, were made by Retro Studios in Austin, Texas. And they moved to a new place in 2011. So Metroid Fusion for the Game Boy Advance in 2002, more than a decade ago, was the last time that Nintendo made a Metroid game.
Wow.
So I would not be surprised if it was more like Nintendo made a deal with some third-party company to make a new Metroid game.
Right.
And if that's the case, I don't know. I would love for them to take somebody like Chair, who made Shadow Complex, which was the best Metroidvania game I've played in a long time, or any of a number of different Steam developers that have done the same thing. But I don't think that you're going to see a new Metroid game for a long, long time.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. All right. This next one comes in from Bo the Buddha.
Hi, Bo.
Greetings, infamous affiliates of Rage. It's been some time since I wrote you guys, and it's finally time to rectify that mistake. So, while I was marathoning some of my favorite horror movies, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, The Exorcist, Basket Case, etc., I stumbled upon a certain science fiction slasher film that made me question my own sanity. The movie in question is the 10th installment in the Friday the 13th series, a.k.a. Jason X, probably the dumbest movie in the franchise. As I stood there watching in awe, I realized that I liked it because of the absurdity and especially this scene. I haven't clicked on this link yet. I hope it's not Goatsy or something. This movie is now part of my October Guilty Pleasures list, along with such gems as Bride of Chucky, Freddy vs. Jason, Alien Resurrection, Frankenhooker, and Pumpkinhead Blood Feud. In keeping up with the spirit of All Hallows Eve, I have concocted the following spooky questions. We all have our favorite horror movie franchises, but which of their terrible sequels do you like to watch because of how bad it is? Thank you for reading my question. I wish you a terrifying and unforgettable Halloween. Much love from your friendly Balkan resident, Bo the Buddha. How cool would it be if there was a Freddy versus Jason Murphy? So we have
that movie was so bad.
Jason X?
Yes.
I think I watched it once.
So bad. That's the one where we're on the spaceship.
Yep. Where it's Cyber Jason.
Yeah.
Oh.
And he's just like beating people to death in a freaking sleeping bag.
One girl in a sleeping bag with another girl in a sleeping bag. That's so stupid.
It's the worst. Man. The actual worst.
All right. What sequels that are terrible?
I got this.
Okay. Good.
I got this.
Good. Go for it.
So I'm a big vampire fan. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple that I love to hate to love. You know.
Okay.
So Dracula 2000.
Is that the one that has Jerry Ryan in it?
It's the one that has Gerard Butler as the vampire.
Okay.
Real good.
I think we're talking about the same one.
Great soundtrack. Good movie. Creepifying.
Yeah.
Sexy. Dracula. Dig it. The sequel. Oh, goodness.
Wait,
Dracula 2, The Ascension.
They made a sequel to Dracula 2000?
Oh, yes, there is.
I thought Dracula 2000 was your answer.
And not only is there a sequel to that, there's a sequel to that sequel.
What?
Yeah. There's Dracula 2, The Ascension, and then there's Dracula 3, which I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like The Awakening or something.
2 direct-to-video sequels, Ascension in 2003 and Legacy in 2005.
That was it. That's the one. Okay, so Dracula 2, Ascension. Horrible movie. Horrible movie.
Damn.
I owned it for many years.
Okay.
And would watch it many times because it's so bad. So bad.
Scott Lee.
The vampire was hot. Dug it. The storyline is super crap. It's like this med student who daylights as a coroner discovers a vampire body, and her boyfriend, the professor who's in like a wheelchair and all paralyzed and shit, decides it's going to be a good idea to experiment on him to try to figure out the secret to like eternal life or whatever. And obviously shit goes wrong and the vampire gets out and yada yada yada. Horrible movie.
Okay.
And then in the end of it, the main chick gets bit and goes to the dark side business.
Okay.
So in the third one, so she's in love with the teacher, and the teacher turns out to be a bad dude. And then there's the boy next door type who's been in love with her, but she doesn't give the time of day. Well, in the third one, he becomes all badass vampire hunter-y and goes on this tear to rescue her from Dracula.
Nope.
But the only redeeming factor of this movie is that they, for some reason, get rid of the hot guy who played the vampire in Dracula 2.
Right.
Who I really dug. He was super hot. In the third one, it's Rutger Hauer.
That's what I'm seeing
Rutger
here.
Hauer's Dracula.
That's what I'm seeing.
It's a horrible movie. Absolutely fucking horrible. And they're all in Romania and going through and trying to find the vampires and save her soul. And oh God, so bad.
Wow.
Just so bad.
That sounds
There's that.
really
And then
awful.
on the shtick of vampires,
Okay.
Anne Rice, you've got not the Vampire Lestat, that's what the book's called. Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah.
Great movie. I'm not really a Tom Cruise fan, but he did Lestat real well.
It's all right.
Bitchy vampire with a stick up his butt.
Yeah. I like it a little bit. Oh, Queen of the Damned.
Queen of the Damned.
Oh man, Queen of the Damned.
I have so many feels about that movie. Because I'm a fan of the books. And that book and that character, Akasha.
Yeah.
Great character. Super nuanced. Did you read the Vampire Chronicles?
Some of them, yes.
Did you read the
I
Queen of
did.
the Damned?
Yes.
Akasha's whole shtick was men are stupid and full of conflict. If you wipe the world clean of 90% of all of the penis and you lock them up and put them in a cage and just use them for procreation, the world's problems will all be ended because women will rule everything in peace and it'll be great. Right? So Akasha wakes up and goes through the world's third world countries and wipes out entire tribes of dudes and just leaves a couple dudes locked up in a cage.
I have forgotten these details.
Right?
I've forgotten these details.
So there's this whole underlying message, quote unquote, that she's got. And she had a purpose.
Yeah.
In the movie version, they wiped all that shit out, all of that social commentary, and turned it into, oh, she's just a bloodlusty vampire. She's going to wake up and drain the world dry, blah-de-blah-de-blah. And then they got rid of the whole backstory of Macaire and Maharet, the other two main characters of this fucking book, and just made her this, bitchy, whiny, oh, woe is me, I'm all alone vampire with this weird family tree that they never go through the process of describing.
Yeah.
And then they turn Jessie into this, lovesick fangirl for Lestat.
I love this has been festering for a long time in Jennifer. I'm like, the things you're talking about, I can barely remember these. It's like a wisp of a smoke in my mind. Like, I kind of understand what you're saying, but it's kind of like when I start talking about Dark Souls to other people.
I have many feels.
Apparently.
Many feels about this.
Apparently.
Oh, and they get rid of Louis altogether. Like, Louis and Lestat are supposed to be the couple that ends all couples, and they end up together, and it's super sexy, and they're homoerotic. No, they end up together.
No, like 3 books later doesn't really kill himself.
I don't know. I didn't read much beyond The Queen of the Damned. That was the last one that I really read when I was going through that tear. I read Armand.
I read The Body Thief, and then
I didn't read The Body Thief.
And then I think Armand, and then at that point I was like, I'm
read
done.
Pandora.
I'm done. I'm not. Yeah.
Oh, and then they got Armand wrong because he was supposed to be like the whole druids in the forest business.
Oh, yeah.
That was a thing. So basically they fucked everything of it up. They just took the names of the characters in this like loose interpretation and then plopped them into a movie.
Sure.
The only redeeming factors of that movie were the score and soundtrack by Jonathan Davis, because he's a fucking genius. He's the lead singer of Korn, for those of you living under a rock. He wrote all of the Lestat songs and sang them as well. Lestat. And Aaliyah, her acting was amazing, although they completely and totally miscast because Akasha isn't African. She was imported from a Scandinavian country and made to marry one of the pharaohs. So she was all pale and either blonde or redheaded. I want to say it was redheaded.
My God, you remember so much.
I know.
How do you remember this much?
I really loved that. I loved that book when I was in middle school. I went through this whole dark and broody thing where I just read lots of like really deep books for a very long time. I didn't have many really close friends in middle school. I read a lot of fucking books. Like I was the kid that would walk into the library and the librarian would break all of the librarian rules and let me check out 5 books because she knew I would come back 2 or 3 days later and have read them all.
Nice.
So they gave out awards at the end of every year for people who had the most AR points, like the people that had read the most books. I won those every year. Like every fucking year. Yeah, I was that kid. Yeah, so they messed everything about Queen of the Damned up.
Sure.
But I really loved Aaliyah, and the costumes were great, and her interpretive dance in the club thing was sexy. Yeah, that's my like 25-minute rant.
Okay. I'm just trying to think. I don't know that I'm not a huge fan of the franchises that get a million sequels. I do really like that one part there's one of the Jason movies where it starts with there's like a camper and she's like running through the forest and Jason is chasing her, and then like they go into this clearing and then like all these floodlights come on and Jason's like, what the hell? And then like a bunch of FBI guys with machine guns come out and basically just like they shoot him until there's nothing left. And
as you do.
And I'm like, great, thank you.
You're
for
not stupid.
Doing something that's not stupid. Yes. Let's see. I'm just trying to think of horror movies that I really do like Freddy vs. Jason. It is dumb. It is super stupid.
Totally dumb.
I like it's been a long time, and I actually want to go back and watch it, but I really like Event Horizon. I remember really, really liking that one. I'm trying to think of other horror movies that I watched.
AVP?
No. Now it's time for my 25-minute rant.
No.
So fuck that movie. Fuck that movie.
That's why. Like movies you love to hate.
No, I don't even love to hate it. I hate it. I just hate it. Like
I hate to hate it.
I say this all the time. I guess I haven't told it to you. I was invited to a like pre-screening of AVP, and about 75% of the way through it, I just stood up and left the theater and was like, I just can't with this movie.
The end was the best part.
I can't with this movie.
The end was the best part because the alien has sex with the predator.
Okay.
And then it births a little predator baby or a little alien baby out of the predator in space.
No. By this time,
it's the best part.
No, how do you make a movie about aliens versus predator, and then the very first time that the aliens and predators fight, 2 of the predators get killed, and now it's just 1 predator left. And I'm not trying to like make a statement about lady action heroes or anything. I don't think that anybody who's been given a sword and a spear to fight a xenomorph gets to win. That's just
just doesn't happen.
Like, give me one of your
not happening. Sorry.
predator laser guns or something.
Yep.
Yeah. And
some bullshit.
I actually really liked Aliens vs. Predator 2 more because it was.
I don't know that I saw the second one.
It was like it's like in a small rural town, and it's kind of like Rambo: First Blood, except that it's predators and aliens fighting each other in this small like
the
sleepy
first
town.
one is the one with the underground temple, right?
Yes.
The icy
where Lance Henriksen and them go into
cool.
the ice and
that's
stuff.
That's the one that I saw.
Yeah. I will say though that out of Bo the Buddha's list, I actually don't mind Alien Resurrection as much as a lot of other people do.
No?
I know that it's got a lot of problems, but I wasn't yet a cynical internet person when I saw it, and I was like, I like Winona Ryder, and I like aliens, and I like Sigourney Weaver fighting.
I love Sigourney Weaver, but
shooting stuff.
Why don't you have Sigourney Weaver make you a meatloaf then?
What's that?
That's Jeff Foxworthy, man.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, that's a really good one. That's a really good one.
I just got done seeing a bunch of her in Finding Dory, but
she's in Finding Dory?
She's like a. We'll talk afterward.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, as far as guilty pleasures go, I don't know. I don't really do a lot of the stuff is definitely one that's on that list about the goop that falls from space and then they put it in containers and people start buying it and eating it. Yeah, check that out. That's weird.
No thanks. I'm good.
I'm trying to think of other cheesy horror movies. I don't know.
Not exactly horror, but kind of Halloween-y in feel. Heathers.
Okay.
Exploding people in high school and poisoning cheerleaders and.
I just want to go back and watch the Garfield Halloween movie.
Nice.
Those are my favorites. Anyway, let's move it along. Next one, this one comes in from Ruskells, who says, hello, Spooky Jeff and Spookier Jennifer. With the Switch adopting cartridges, we may see the return to smaller game cases. As a PC gamer, I couldn't be more excited as I miss the days of buying CD case-sized games that came with thick game manuals. Would you like to see Sony or Microsoft adopting a cartridge/SD card-based system if the Switch turned out to be successful, or would they stick with cheaper to produce DVDs? If you're sick of theorizing on the Switch, pretend this is a question about bottle episodes and reminiscent about your favorite and least favorite Dojo episodes. Thanks for all the amazing content. Happy All Souls Day, Ruskells06. So in the Switch announcement, they showed that the Switch is probably going to be using cartridges as opposed to CDs. As much as, even if the Nintendo Switch was dramatically successful, I cannot see Sony or Microsoft moving away from disc-based stuff.
I can't, but I will say that I do miss cartridges.
Yeah.
There's something satisfying about them. I don't know. I just dig them. Like, I still have all of my Nintendo, Super Nintendo cartridges displayed on my little gaming shelf. And
do you think that you would have as much, because the cartridges that we're looking at for the Switch are like the size of an SD card, do you think that'll scratch that itch for you? I mean, maybe the size of like a 3DS cartridge. Like,
they're not as fun to display.
Yeah,
they're too tiny.
Yeah. I also think that as long as we're still selling Blu-rays, that Microsoft and Sony won't forgo having a Blu-ray drive in there to be able to play Blu-rays.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening. But what about your favorite? Got a favorite bottle episode?
Bottle episode?
It's a show episode where it all takes place in one place. Do Doctor Who? Do you Doctor Who?
I do not.
Doctor Who. I'm trying to think of a good Star Trek. Okay. TNG. It's like a 6th or 7th episode or season episode where Captain Picard is stuck on the Enterprise by himself. There's like this delousing ray that's going over the Enterprise, and he goes back to get his saddle, and everybody's trying. No, that's not really a bottle episode. I'm trying to think of it. Never mind. You know what? Let's just move on to the next question.
Oh, okay.
It's fine.
Oh, well, all right then.
Because we're already getting a little bit close to being done here. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and skip this one, and we'll do these two. Joe says, "Hey, Jeff and Jennifer, at what age did you realize that there could be bad games? I mean, when could you recognize bad mechanics or a crummy system or badly written characters? Playing many PlayStation and N64 titles at a young formative age actually got me started early, but then again, this was the early years of 3D controls where lots of awful attempts at designing controls for 3D were made. I'm not talking about graphics because I know you and many folks your age and older dislike early polygon games, which is cool with me, but I'm curious about gameplay you first found to be Garbage Town. Tao Feng Fist of the Lotus for the original OG Xbox looked fucking amazing from screenshots and ads, but fuck me, that is one of the stiffest fighting games out there, and my 14 to 15-year-old self caught on quick. Around this time, I had majorly gotten into Soul Calibur, Virtual Fighter 4, Tekken, and Dead or Alive. While Dead or Alive as a series is way too floaty, Tao Feng was stiff as Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Your thoughts, Joe? So the real question here is, at what age did you realize there could be bad games? When you could recognize bad mechanics or a crummy system or badly written characters? Okay, so pre-NES, I got my NES when I was 10 years old, and before that, I can say that there were plenty of crummy games that I couldn't identify as being bad.
Okay.
In fact, you know those old games they used to have where it's like the little, before there were video games, how there were like little Game & Watch things where you would have those things. Like I had some of those, and I actually liked them because I had not yet developed to a point of learning what terrible garbage was, and they're terrible. Those little things are fucking terrible. About 10 years old, the NES came out. I told the story earlier about how I didn't understand grinding in Dragon Warrior. There's a lot of the NES era where if Nintendo Power told me a game was really good, I was just like, yay, I love this game. But there's always a part of my brain that understood that, you know, Street Fighter 2020 and Kabuki Quantum Fighter were not very good games. I would say for my own self that it was probably in my tween years, call it 12 to 14, where I basically started to get to I really like this game and I really don't like this game. And I think that a lot of that was due to the fact that the NES library was so huge that you could say, and because of the rental culture at the time and being able to go out every weekend and rent a game, I remember going out to the store and looking at the new games that were out and going, I don't like any of these. I think I'd rather just play Star Tropics again this weekend. I want to rent that and take it home and play that because I know that's a good game. And the box art on these or whatever the back of this game looks like is bad. I could say that honestly that was probably right around the time that I started forming like actual opinions about things and thinking about stuff a little bit more instead of just, you know, everybody says that Chipmunks the movie is the best movie of all time, and so you're like, hell yeah, it is. I believe everything that everybody tells me.
Totally.
Yep.
Just absolutely.
Yep. So yeah, I'd say 12 to 14, which was what, 78? That's 80. It's about 1990, 91, 92 for the old Jeffster here, and I never stopped being bitchy and complainy since. So.
And we love you for it.
Mm-hmm.
So. My early days with video games. There's a pause here because I'm trying to put into words what I'm thinking. So, video games were an early part of my life. I was around them from a very early age. Mm-hmm. But the consoles we had in my house were my stepdad's.
Okay.
And my stepdad was very overprotective with his stuff and could not fathom the concept that I would understand or be able to play games.
Well, sure, you're a girl, right? So, I mean, you know.
Well, I'm a child.
Or a child, yeah.
Yeah, and so many issues.
Wait, can I ask what year this is? Because that's a weird, I mean, it's been the last 5 years where video games have finally exited the realm of like, this is a toy for children for a lot of things. So I almost feel like it's strange because I'm assuming that this is probably pre-2000.
Oh yeah, the first console we had in the house was the Super Nintendo.
Because those weren't
first console I got to play was the Nintendo, but that was one of my babysitters growing up had a boyfriend who played games, and he was cool as shit.
Yeah,
like they were the kind of people that when my parents were out, like my mom worked nights. My dad worked during like all the time because he was in the Navy, so he's gone for 3-4 months. Mm-hmm. So they would let me stay the night at these people's house, and they were like the hippie, fun-loving, candle-burning, meatloaf listening to.
Okay.
They had one of those cool the wicker chair with the big seat.
A Papazon.
Yeah, they had one of those, and I would just pop up in that and play video games with them. So I played lots of like Mario and Duck Hunt.
Sure.
And carved candles with knives because that's what we did back in the day.
I thought that was the name of a game. I was like, I don't remember.
No,
carved
like
candles.
they had these giant pillar candles, and there was a dude who was really like artisanal with like carving them into beautiful sculptures and things. And it was the most fascinating shit I'd ever seen. I was 3 or 4.
Damn.
So that would have been what, like 91, 92, somewhere around there. So I was 3, 4, or 5.
Yeah.
So that was my first intro to video games, but because my experience with games was so few and far between, we didn't have a console at the house. I only got to see it when I was over there with them.
Sure.
It was a very sacred experience to me. And I loved every game. I loved everything about them. Dr. Mario was my shit.
Yeah.
I don't recall there being a game I didn't enjoy because I had such a huge sense of wonder at it. It's like getting to try chocolate for the first time. You don't know what the best chocolate or the worst chocolate is. It's just fucking chocolate and you love it and it's amazing and you want it all the time.
Sure.
So that was the first gen. Then when we finally had a console in the house, it was the Super Nintendo. And my stepdad was super guarded with it. He never, ever let me play it. So I got to watch him play like Final Fantasy 6, 3, whatever you want to call it, and Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past.
Was he a professional interrogation person?
No.
Because I can think of nothing more mean than making a child simply watch you play video games without ever getting a chance to play them on their own.
The thing of it was that he was like, you couldn't possibly understand this, or you wouldn't get it, or you're not able to do it right, or whatever.
How old are you at this point?
But he wasn't. So that would have been 6 or 7, like young.
Yeah.
But I was always like, I had a college level reading level by the time I was in like first fucking grade. Like,
yeah.
You know, like I wasn't your normal, like going around destroying the world kind of kid. Like I had patience and I was intelligent and focused and I loved that shit. But he was the kind of guy that I swear he should have just been playing first person fucking shooters all the time for his lack of puzzle solving ability. He wouldn't play through the game on its own.
Yeah.
He would get the game and the book.
No.
And my mom would navigate. That was an official title in our house, was the navigator.
No.
And she would be reading the book, and he would be trying to figure shit out and couldn't, and he'd get all pissed off and frustrated, and she would have to tell him what to do. And I'd be sitting there on the floor watching this shit happen, figuring it out in my head, and like, you should do this is what you should do, go this way. But he wouldn't let me help him.
Sure.
Because I'm a kid, so obviously what I have to say isn't worthwhile. So, like, my experience with games, I can't tell you games I didn't like because I didn't get to play them a lot growing up. I got to watch them cinematically like movies and be frustrated at the ineptitude of my stepdad and his inability to figure games out. Like, he never beat Final Fantasy VII. Ever. He got to the final battle and couldn't figure the shit out and would spend like an hour and a half to 2 hours in that battle trying to grind his way through it and would die every time and would like rage quit and throw the controller and be mad. And so I remember thinking, this has got to be the world's like hardest fucking game on the planet. Oh my God, I'm never going to beat it. And then the first time I was old enough after we had the game, when he went on Westpac, which is where you're gone for 6 months on an aircraft carrier in the middle of the fucking ocean.
Yeah.
That was my first opportunity to have it and to play it without him around. I beat it through the first time I tried it and was like, that was it.
Yeah.
And I beat it in like 15 minutes. Yeah. So
because you were probably enjoying the game, doing the side quest, building up the levels that got
without
skipped.
the book.
Right, without the book, exploring the world, getting into the random battles from our previous JRPG question, getting your characters to a proper level, and instead of trying to do the end boss at the wrong level over and over again and expecting something different to happen,
I would do it right.
You did it right.
Yeah, and I had love of the game and the genre, and he never really had that sense of reverence for it that I did.
Sure.
It was the weirdest dynamic.
You know, it's like I can now... I feel like you've now given us your superhero backstory, right? Like as a child, I was forced to watch somebody poorly play Final Fantasy VII, and then when I finally got a chance to play it, it's now my favorite game of all time because, it's almost your entire gaming career is based on rubbing this game in his face of just like, if you just fucking thought about it for 10 minutes, put down the Prima guide, you might learn how to play a video game for once in your life.
Seriously. So I never grew out of that stage because by the time I was old enough to actually play the games I wanted to play, I was so busy with school and taking extra classes to get me out of the house and shit. I never had extra money or time to buy video games.
Yeah.
So all of the games that I've ever experienced have been secondhand from somebody else.
Okay.
Always. Until now, post-college, I'm working for a VR company. I have time and money to spend on games. I bought my first console at the beginning of this year. Like the PS4 is the only console I've ever actually purchased.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm slowly catching up. But that's why 95% of the time, if you ask me if I've played a game or not, I'm like, no, I haven't played it. Yes, I've watched somebody else play it. Because that was my experience with gaming, was watching other people play it or going to friends' houses and playing it at their house. So I'm still I'm new enough to games that nothing is boring for me, really.
No, I gotcha. You're at where I was when you're coming up on it is the answer to the question, because I feel like you can't properly judge until you've got a certain number of it's like movies, right? It's like, how are you going to tell a good movie from a bad movie until you've watched a bunch of movies to be able to compare the two of them?
Yes, and I've always been so selective in my genre. I've always gone for that high fantasy genre.
Sure.
And those games are all really good.
Yeah.
They all have their own beautiful things to them. So it's hard to be able to have a good, this shit sucks kind of a thing.
Sure.
I'm just now getting to the point where I'm playing games and I'm like, I just really don't like that. Like the game I played last night for the first time, Nightmare Dungeon 2. I was like, I just don't fucking like this game.
Yeah.
Played it for 2 hours, died a shit ton of times, didn't learn a goddamn thing, rage quit it, done.
Yeah, it's actually kind of sad that you are that part of your experience right now is PC gaming, because the development expenses for most of the consoles are so high these days. PC gaming is like the last vestiges of that. Steam list is just full of a bunch of real crappy games.
Yep.
Or as it used to be. As you move forward in time, the number of crappy games got smaller because since the development costs went up, you couldn't just churn out a crappy game for no money.
You've got to make sure it's worth something.
You have to pay for the game to exist, so it either needs to be a cash-in off of a franchise to be crappy, but like I'm looking at my list of games sitting here on my PlayStation 4 is turned on. And while we've gotten to a point in human history where it's like, I'm going to talk at a granular level about how the graphics in Mafia 3 are not quite up to the same level as they are in Grand Theft Auto 5. And so they're kind of disappointing, which when you pull back and look at that from a macro level, it's like, Grand Theft Auto 5 is the greatest open world game that's ever been made, with the best graphics that I've ever seen in an open world game.
Right.
Mafia 3 is maybe 70% the game that game is, and so it's garbage. And so you just throw it on the ground,
but
step on the disc.
It's still now like infinitely better than anything we would have had when we were kids.
But the only reason that I can say that is because we now live in that's one thing that a lot of people, and there are definitely arguments on the other side about why right now is a very cynical, the amount of HD remakes and re-releases and the lack of truly original non-sequel titles coming out. Those are all great arguments, but we also live in a time where there's a shitload of great games out there because you have the entirety of gaming history to kind of go through. So I feel like a lot of times we get into these conversations, and by the way, I mean the gaming community, get into these arguments about, I was talking about Ashes of Ariandel when we started this part, right? There's a good chunk of people who are like, Ashes of Ariandel isn't worth $15 because it's not long enough, because it's only 3 hours long. It's worth $10. So we're getting to a point where we're quibbling over the number of great hours in this piece of add-on content, and the $5 difference in the price tag that it's worth make the difference between it's great or it's terrible, because there's very little middle ground for mediocre these days. And in some cases, I don't even believe there has to be, because we've got so many great games that why would you put up with anything that isn't just the top 1%? Especially, most human beings that aren't me don't have to fill up 10 videos every week with new games, so they're free to basically say, well, that game seems like it's okay, but it's $60 and I'm not going to spend my money on it,
Right.
Dragon Quest Builders is a game that I bought. I haven't even put on the show. A little Dragon Quest version of Minecraft. Is it great? No. Is it terrible? Absolutely not. It's like a middle-of-the-road, weird Minecraft spin-off game. So you get into a place where you're arguing over the minutia. What you're arguing over about what makes a good game, what makes a bad game, has been getting smaller and smaller and smaller because, there's NES games that are just simply too difficult or fully broken, and those games are not worth it. So
it's interesting that I'm saddened that I don't have the context, like the sheer volume of experience in gaming that you have, to be able to authoritatively say yes or no on so many games, and to understand those nuanced levels of what's good and what's not.
Sure.
But in the same tack, given the choice between that and the sense of wonder that comes with an experience, I think I enjoy having the wonder of an experience. Everything is still new to me. Everything still has that sense of wonder and joy. Gaming isn't a tedium to me. And I like having that freedom and that flexibility of seeing it from a perspective that nobody else does because they haven't played games as much.
Sure.
And I don't know, Rage Select community, let us know. Do you prefer just the authoritative view on things, or do you like having that sense of uninformed newbieism behind it and seeing like the gamut of the experience and how we appreciate it?
Yeah.
What do you like?
I mean, I personally, when it comes right down to it, the thing is that I still like them all, even the bad ones, because I feel like every game has something to say. And even if it's a crappy broken game, it has something to say about crappy broken games. How did that happen?
Right.
Why is it broken? How did this get pushed out? And what does that say that we can suffer a game that is broken to launch at a $60 price tag, right? And
Absolutely.
what does that say about us? So the thing is that I'm very cynical, but I'm an optimistic cynic, I guess.
That's beautiful.
That's
deep right there.
I really like video games. I still love them. It's just that, and I actually give some games a lot of slack where other people would complainy pants all day about them because I just like them. I just like video games, and I still do. But I definitely wish that there were some days that I wish I could come at it from your perspective because, how great would it be to be like, there are people, when I say sometimes that I haven't seen a specific movie or I haven't played a specific game, that are like, oh my God, and they get real upset. And whenever that comes up on the opposite side for me, I'm like, I'm so happy for you.
Because you're about to go through this shit.
Jennifer, I'm so happy for you. You get to play Portal for the first time.
Oh, I need to add that to my list.
I don't ever get to play Portal for the first time ever again, but you still get to play Portal for the first time.
I do. I'm excited.
Yeah, so...
Learned a lot this year. I played more games this year than I played ever in my life, and I love it.
There you go. All right, so we have one more question on the list, and this one comes in from Paul C. And Paul C. says, hello, Jeff and spooky co-host Jennifer. My question for you is, what is your favorite mythical creature?
Ooh.
How come, and if you could have it as a pet... all food and living needs taken care of, would you or would you have another creature as a pet? Personally, I would love to have a shape-changing pet that wouldn't change into just pets but objects, like Blobby. I don't know what Blobby is. Love the show. Keep it up, Paul C. All right, so we're into cryptozoology territory here.
I love you, Paul. Paul, you are my favorite creature ever on the planet.
Favorite mythical creature?
Man, how long do you have? This is a list. I guess at the top of the list has got to be dragons.
Okay.
I mean, come on. Like, I grew up reading the Dragonlance Chronicles. I could live in the dragon mythology forever.
What kind of dragons are we talking about? Eastern dragons, Western dragons, drakes, wyverns?
Wyverns. So in the Dragonlance Chronicles, there are dragons of different colors, and each color is a different species that has its different pathos and ethos and purpose and everything in life.
Okay.
And I'm actually really excited. I'm DMing Curse of Strahd, the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons campaign that is written by Tracy Hickman. And he was one of the co-writers of the Dragonlance Chronicles. And that world is all about dragon mythology and the basis of the dragons and where they come from and how they interact with the gods and their loyalties and things, which I've always found fascinating. And he found a way to tie that into Curse of Strahd, which is all vampires and werewolves and that kind of base. And I discovered there was like a footnote on a page that said, by the way, there's this little thing that they can go about, and it's all about the Order of the Silver Dragon. And I'm super excited that my characters discovered it, and they're about to go on this mission quest to discover this dragon thing. And I'm like so fucking excited about it. I can't even. So
dragon? Is that your answer?
So dragons, and in that world, dragons can shapeshift. They can turn into humans. They have human form as well as, they can turn to humanoid. They could be a dwarf, an elf, a human, or whatever the hell they want, because they're these hugely powerful, amazingly fantastic creatures. Hell yeah.
Okay.
Gimme.
All right. You gonna just have a big dragon in your backyard?
Oh yeah.
Just hanging out?
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, it can shapeshift. It could live in the fucking house with me if it wanted to. If it deemed to lower itself to being a humanoid.
Okay.
That or Shiva from Final Fantasy. She's fucking awesome.
Which one?
All of her, like every permutation.
Have you ever seen Shiva from Final Fantasy 13?
No.
Shiva from Final
I
Fantasy
saw her in
13.
that trailer we saw. That looked bitchin', like a techno mecha Shiva.
They all turn into vehicles.
Oh.
Which is a little weird.
That's a very like legendary girl Utena kind of
thing. And Shiva,
which if you've not seen that anime will fuck you up.
I think I saw that once a long time ago.
Rose Bride, man, that's just crazy.
Final Fantasy 13's Shiva is a lesbian motorcycle.
Hot.
Because it's like two ladies that like hug and then turn into a motorcycle.
Okay, that is totally and completely a ripoff of Legendary Girl Utena.
Oh, yeah?
Revolutionary Girl Utena. Sorry, why am I calling it Legendary? Revolutionary Girl Utena. That's totally what happens in the end of that movie.
Okay. Let's see.
Utena and the Rose Bride have this like lesbian relationship, and the Rose Bride turns into a fucking motorcycle and turns into a Corvette, and they drive off together.
Yeah, it's the summon
Hi,
system.
Shiva, you're hot.
Final Fantasy 13 is real strange. Ramu turns into a big horse, I believe, that Lightning rides around.
What in the world?
Yeah. Anyway, this is as far as the whole cryptozoology thing goes. I think that I'm gonna have to go with the Sphinx. I'm a big Sphinx fan.
Ooh, that mental game though.
Yeah, they get to hang out. They get to ask them questions, and then they'll eat you when you don't answer correctly.
I'm sure there's a scissoring joke in there somewhere.
I've forgotten how crazy this is, but yeah, they turn into Shiva in Final Fantasy 13 turns into a crazy motorcycle.
Why is it two people?
I don't understand.
Strange.
I don't understand. Anyway, with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We're a little bit over time already. So
this was fun. I really dug these questions this week.
Yeah, good questions this week. mail@rageselect.com is the email address. Jennifer, where can people find you on the internet?
I am Mayhem's Muse. You can that's Mayhem's_Muse on most social media. You can find me on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Model Mayhem. Like, I'm everywhere. Mayhem's Muse, Mayhem's_Muse.
Okay. And we're gonna. That's it. That's all we got for this week. Have a very safe Halloween. Check all your candy for razor blades, even though that doesn't ever happen. It has never happened, except it happened to me one time, and I'll tell that story someday in the future. Because when they say that's never happened, I beg to differ. Happy Halloween. Have a fun time, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.